Vestiges After Dark is a philosophical speculation program sponsored by the Holy Nicolayan Catholic Church, an independent Catholic church inspired by the diversity of early Christianity and in communion with the Old Catholic Church. Presiding Bishop Brian Willett presents perspectives on esotericism, metaphysics, philosophy, psychology, paranormal research, theology, spirituality, religion, and Catholicism. We are not affiliated with the Church of Rome. Our discussions of Catholicism are broader than, and distinct from, the Church of Rome. The views and opinions expressed are those of the individual participants.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever the case may be. For all of you listening out there across the crazy planet Earth, welcome to Vestiges After Dark. And I am your host, Bishop Brian Willett, coming to you live from the deep woods of western Georgia on this April 28th, 2026. Well, all of you have probably had some kind of paranormal experience in your life. Chances are you wouldn't be watching this show if you hadn't. But how many of you have really thought about how much of that is an internal experience as a catalyst for all of those external things that you see? We are going to discuss paranormal awareness and what vibrations have to do with it with returning guest Michelle Ferguson tonight on Vestiges After Dark. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome again to Vestiges After Dark. I am your host, Bishop Brian Willett, with my co-host, Jamie Wolf.
Good evening, everyone.
And we hope that you are ready for tonight, because I think we have a fantastic show coming up on the second and third hours as we talk about tonight's subject, raising vibrations and what that has to do with paranormal experience. And I think a lot of you are going to get a lot out of it, particularly since the paranormal is a large focus of our audience, and certainly, more insight into this type of thing for your own self and dealing with these experiences you might find very beneficial. So make sure you take some notes tonight, or at least bookmark the location to this video on YouTube or Facebook, wherever you happen to be watching us tonight, TikTok, Instagram, and reference it again in the future. I want to, before we get started tonight, I know that we have these new segments, right? And I said, we're going to do Internet Inquisition. And you liked asshat accusations.
I was in a bit of a mood.
Maybe we can call it asshat accusations when it's an accusation. But tonight it's more like an Internet Inquisition. It's really more of a commentary, because it's something that happens often, and I think it's something that I have to address. Look, we get a lot of emails from people over, the course of a year, that are looking to become clergy, to become a priest. They want to be a priest. And a lot of times they'll even say they want to be an exorcist. Let me give you a word of advice about that. Okay. If you're contacting this church because this is something that you feel called to, I am more than happy to explore that vocation with you. As long as that's a sincere request and that you really truly feel called by God to serve in this capacity. But if you've never been a member of this church, if you have never supported this church, if this church doesn't even know who you are, and you just come out of the blue and ask this church to explore whether or not it will ordain you, particularly when you live in another state and have no intention of coming here to serve the community here in Atlanta, Georgia, where this church is, where the church that you want to be ordained by is, then, what are you doing? Because that's not how you get yourself, or you find yourself in the realm of priesthood. The priests in a church are drawn from the people who serve that church already. Usually it's exemplary service, and they're recognized for this. And then at some point, somebody in the church hierarchy might come to you and say, have you explored a vocation? Or you might at that point say, I feel called to God in this capacity. Could you discern with me? This is a perfectly legitimate thing. This is how it happens, in fact. But when you've never even attended a mass, to our knowledge, you've never reached out to us in any other way, and the first contact is, will you make me a priest? I live in another state. Get some perspective here. That's not what any legitimate church would ever consider. And certainly, maybe you need to reconsider what it is that you're asking for, because priesthood is not about getting something for yourself. It's not about making a declaration. It's not a job that you pursue. Okay, it's something that finds you. Okay, it's something that God calls you to, and your life sort of becomes all topsy-turvy because of it. And I don't think people really realize to what extent that happens. All right, they see it as a profession. And maybe to a large extent, it gets equated to things like preachers and ministers and all these other churches and everything else. And that does look like a job, because let's face it, a lot of them are doing it for money. But if you want to get into actual spirituality, if you really want to be engaging God directly, not just talking about it, not just reading about it in some Bible, but actually doing it, well, you have to give your entire self to it before before it's ready to give anything to you. Okay, and that has to already be evident. Sending an email to a church that you've never even contacted before, asking for that, is really it's going to rub the bishop the wrong way, as it does when I get those emails. Okay, so and the worst part, the biggest slap in the face, I would say, or maybe it's validation, I don't know. But when I respond back, and I usually will respond back to those emails personally, and I explain what's involved and how much commitment is involved and what the expectations are, and I set them out very clearly, very transparently. To not even get an email back that says, thank you so much for your time.
Crickets.
You know, it's just crickets because you didn't get the answer you wanted. Tells me everything I need to know about what your intentions are. Don't bother this church. Do not waste this church's time. We don't have it to spare on someone that's looking for a vanity ordination, because that's exactly what that is. If you want to be a priest in this church, by all means, this church could use another priest. But I'll tell you right now, you're going to work your ass off in this church, and you're not going to get paid a cent for it, because there's no salaries in this church, at least not right now. Okay? You better be willing to give 60 hours a week to volunteerism.
I mean, you might get the occasional good meal and a good scotch.
Yeah, we do have that. We do have that. Yeah. But that's about, there's a few fringe benefits, particularly for the bishop. I'm not going to say there aren't. But for the most part, if you're looking to do a job, or if you're just looking for a title, this is the wrong place. You're barking up the wrong tree. Don't think, oh, it's the independent Sacramento movement. It's easy. Oh no, I make it a whole lot harder. You'd be much better off trying to become a Roman Catholic priest. Go ahead, do that. Okay, go do that. It'll be much easier for you, and you'll get paid. You get paid.
Can you imagine someone taking on? And I don't want to pick on this person, but think of it from our vantage point. Obviously, I'm not a priest, never be a priest, all that stuff. But you take someone on your team, and we actually have a real spiritual crisis with a client, and we need all hands on deck and people to know their assignment and not be scared, when weird stuff starts happening. And I guarantee you, someone like that will be the first one running out the door. You have to be able to trust who you're working with in this field.
You sure do.
It's just like law enforcement.
You sure do. And I mean, I don't think people realize to what extent that is something that can happen. And I don't think people really understand to what extent the work is. Okay. It is not a title. It isn't like, oh, let me get some kind of accolade. Holy Orders is a life of service. It's practical slavery. At best, it's indentured servitude. I mean, really. Okay. So if you're willing to at least explore those options, then we can start talking about all the other things that come with it. But if you're not ready to serve, if you're not already serving, how can we even consider you? You're not even at the first step. I mean, and I give in my email what the first steps are, but when you don't even respond back to that email because you didn't get the answer you wanted, well, you're wasting my time and you're wasting yours too.
I think when you put the actual things that are really needed,
yeah, all of a sudden,
I think his head exploded.
It changes perspective a bit. Yeah, it sure does. All right, joining us from Australia, we have Father Chris Yates. How you doing tonight, Father?
I'm doing all right. That last conversation just reminded me of when I went for selection in the Church of England for the priesthood, and it was at this great big manor house. It'd obviously been gifted to the church. You can imagine, American listeners, those English sort of castles that inexplicably are all over the country that have been owned by various people over the years. And this is where it was. And it was a grand house, and this basement where the bar was, which is most important.
Absolutely.
But the first dinner, we went there on a Friday evening, I think it was, and sat down to dinner. And the senior selector is a priest. I won't name him, but if he's watching, he'll remember. And we sat down to dinner, and I said to him, are there any good beers around here? Because I'm into real ale, And he said, I wouldn't know, I'm an alcoholic.
Oh, jeez.
My response was, well, you should know that.
Yeah. So what gives?
And by the way, that's why we're still friends.
Yeah.
But he said, and then he said he was divorced, and he said, Jesus will ruin your life. No, in fact, he didn't say ruin. He said something beginning with F. So this grand house, this is the established church, the Church of England. He's the senior selector, and he says Jesus will F your life up. And so the thought of any look, people are allowed to be naive. It is a naive question. And I can tell you that having served in the Church of England, which is probably amongst the most generous in terms of conditions for clergy, you still are not rich. You still live a life of servitude. Being the established church, you do all the baptisms, you do all the funerals. You don't really get a day off. It's hell, actually. So now that's okay. No one forced me to do it. You take it on voluntarily, but that's why.
But you need the call. You need the vocation to be able to take that on. You wouldn't want to do it otherwise.
You'll implode.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, you will.
And I don't know about. I know for Roman Catholic clergy, each bishops' conference in each nation decide what happens. But I can tell you that in Australia, my Roman Catholic clergy friends are not well off, unless they were already well off before they became priests.
I mean, that's how you have to do it. I mean, it's like,
and in fact, it's quite abusive, I think. I mean, they keep them completely penniless and, in a sense, really highly qualified, but unable to do anything else.
I mean, in the ISM, at least we can have we can seek secular employment options. I mean, of course, that takes more time,
and they're not allowed to.
And they're not allowed to
under canon law.
I know they're prohibited.
The Brazilian Catholic Church, of which I'm a member, partly came about because the bishop allowed his priests to work. Because they were in Brazil, it was poor. The parishes couldn't afford to even house them, and so they had to work, and that was against canon law. And it was one of not the only, but one of the reasons that Rome sidelined the Bishop Carlos Duarte Costa. So
that's interesting.
Priesthood is a slow fiction. So if you're up for that, then volunteer in the community where you are.
Or be independently wealthy, because I'll tell you, you're not going to make a dime. It's going to cost you. You're going to end up poorer at the end. Yeah, even if you have a lot of money, you'll have a lot less money when you're done with this job.
And by the way, a lot of people don't make it through seminary with their faith intact.
That's true. And honestly, if it doesn't get shaken through seminary, then I'd say that it was a shitty seminary. I would.
Well, or you are completely closed to new information.
That's true, and that would make a really bad priest. That makes a really bad priest.
Yeah. You wouldn't make it through seminary, actually. In fact, I knew people like that in seminary. They didn't make it through. There was absolutely no change whatsoever, and so you think, well, then you're probably impervious to feedback.
Well, there's over 32,000 other denominations you can choose from, and you can go pick one of them. But the Catholic priesthood's not for you. I hate to say it, if that's the way it is. Joining us from Tennessee, we have April Narad. How you doing tonight, April?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited about tonight's episode because, as you know, I lean more toward paranormal than I do. I mean, I like the theology and stuff. I don't want to minimize that, but I definitely like the paranormal. That's what brought me into all of this, too. So I'm excited.
I am too. Really it's going to be good. I'm glad we have a good balance on this season, and we've had a few paranormal shows, so this is going to work. And it's a different take on it, because we're bringing in some of that energetic, vibratory information that I think is very important to understanding the paranormal from an esoteric and metaphysical standpoint. So that should be very useful, I think, to our audience coming up in the second and third hours. So let's go ahead and jump right into questions from the ether. April, what do you have for us tonight?
So first question says, from both an esoteric, conventional, and absolute perspective, how would you explain what urban legends are?
Urban legends. Okay, that's a good question. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I would say, and this is just a contention. Okay, it's. I'm not speaking authoritatively on this. Certainly not speaking theologically on this. I'm giving it strictly an esoteric answer, and from my own personal opinion, and with some expertise in there. So it's a very educated opinion. You could put it that way. I would say that urban legends are, at their base nature, just a part of a contemporary mythos. It's contemporary mythology is what it is. Okay, so mythology doesn't go anywhere. We think of mythology as something that's ancient, something that only happened in the ancient world, and like we've evolved beyond it or something. No, human beings haven't changed all that much. We still have a mythos very much alive. The archetypes are still very much alive. We'll even talk about that tonight, because last time we had Michelle on the show, we talked a lot about the Akashic Records and how that relates to Carl Jung's collective unconscious and all the archetypes that sort of reside in that reality, which make up this reality. So, this is the same thing. And so these archetypes haven't gone anywhere. They're eternal. And the mythos that creates the stories of these archetypes are still around. They just take different forms to speak to the sensibilities of whatever time they happen to be in. So urban legends are are that mythos for us in the modern age, no longer linked to some more ancient concept, but something that would be relevant to now. So the only thing that I would say is a little bit different is they're not fully developed yet because they're still contemporary. They're still new. They haven't had a chance to fully integrate into a long-standing mythos like something more ancient from the ancient world. And I think another thing that's kind of important to understand is that they are oftentimes simply generated off of the unusual experiences. This is actually a really good question for tonight because it relates to what we're going to be talking about in the next segment with our guests. The unusual experiences that make up what I guess people would call paranormal experiences, these get often associated with locations, people, or events that happened in a particular spot. And that creates the seed of a mythology to start to expand from there. And then people hear about it, they start talking about it, and gets changed. So there's a little bit of that telephone game. Remember that telephone game you played in grammar school? I was always so intrigued by how different it would be. I always felt there was just one wise ass kid that changed it, but I never knew.
I was the wise ass kid. Every time.
Yeah, but if you were honest with it, it would still change, though. If everybody was honest, it would still change. But it's like that. So, there is everything, every legend, every myth, every story, even a conspiracy theory, which is another type of urban legend, another type of mythos, honestly. It's a modern day mythos. There's fact in all of it. There's truth to all of it. But doesn't mean the thing itself is factual in the historical sense, but there is truth in the archetypal sense. There's always truth in the archetypal sense. Archetypes are always true. They're not always historically factual. So, when you're looking at these mythos, you're not looking at the historicity of what occurred. You're looking at what archetypally is occurring now in the present that this is relating to. And that's what transcends time. Even religion itself is built upon these. And I'm not suggesting that your faith is nothing more than a fiction that's been passed on. That's not what I'm suggesting. What I'm saying is that what you're getting is much greater than fact, much greater than history in religion. Because when we invest energy into these belief structures, then they take on sort of a life that's larger than reality. It becomes greater than reality. And there's more truth there because the archetypes are now animated and alive. And that collective unconscious that we talked about, or the Akashic records if you prefer, some might disagree, but I see them as largely the same thing. It becomes present in this reality. And we can interact with it. And that's what causes a lot of what people would call so-called paranormal experiences, or even spiritual experiences or peak experiences. They're all related to this. So that's what I would say an urban legend is. Jamie, what do you think about urban legends? I mean, being a police officer, I'd imagine you have some insight into that.
Yeah, you've got all the little suspicious stuff you don't do and all that stuff. But yeah. I was just going to suggest Joseph Campbell wrote a book called The Power of Myth. Anyone interested in that? It explains this subject in ad nauseum. So anything by Joseph Campbell's worth reading if you're into this kind of thing.
Father Chris, you have any thoughts on urban legends?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're describing lore, L-O-R-E, lore.
Yeah, lore, yeah.
From which we get folklore, and it's what generates culture. So I think it's really important. I think it's a perfectly, I was going to say natural. It's a perfectly human experience. And also, by the way, urban legends are partly driven out of admiration for people sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
there's all sorts of quotes attributed to Winston Churchill, for example, normally witty things. And for a lot of them, there's absolutely no supporting documentation that he ever said any of them.
Carl Jung too. There's a lot of ones that they claim Carl Jung said it. Yeah.
Now he may have said some of them, he may not have, but they've got this kind of truthy. It sounds like something Winston would have said, and really that's the sort of. So I think a lot of it's out of admiration, some of it's out of demonization. So a lot of the sort of myths around the crazy things you were doing with witches back in the 17th century. A lot of that would have been sort of urban legends, wouldn't it? About, women with spectacular powers over men, normally an excuse for men to blame women for their own faults.
Yeah, that's true.
And so there's an important part of how our cultures, and over time, within a group of people, that's what makes it a community, that you have these shared stories, which, like you say, they may have mythology attached to them, but they're normally based on something that's true, or or it's certainly based on the sort of super true things, like the boy that cried wolf.
Yeah.
I don't. Oh, there may have been a boy that cried wolf. Who knows? But we don't need there to be for that story to hold true, because the truth of the story is, if you lie, people won't believe you. And so every community has been filled with people who lie. And then over time, this is actually how you generate a nation, by the way, because you basically have a community on a national scale that has shared myths, shared beliefs. If you think about patriotism, and I'm a patriot, I'm all for patriotism. But you think about it, if you think about it rationally or without any metaphysics whatsoever, it doesn't make any sense. It only makes sense because it's connected spiritually, ethereally, however people want to talk about it, to a collection of stories that we all, or our common lore, our folklore, that we all sort of have as the basis of how we think. By the way, it's also why massive mistakes happen when people in America or people in Australia or wherever think just the same as us. Everyone wants the same thing. They'll think about some country with a very, very different folklore, a very, very different mythos that's formulated it. But we assume that they're going to, they want the same things we want. You don't know that. And this isn't to alienate. I'm not trying to say other people are better or worse. I'm just saying that it's the flaw comes because we're not aware of our own lore, our own urban legends that have shaped not only us as people but our communities and in fact our nations.
Yeah,
it's even easier. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, in law enforcement, it's not really an urban legend kind of thing. We have an issue with like stereotyping, which could come from some urban legends around groups of people, or because we deal with the same group of people basically. I know in proactive law enforcement, when I work narcotics, you're arresting the same folks all the time. Then you're arresting their sons, and if you're in law enforcement long enough, you'll be getting grandkids, and they all act the same way. Like you can see somebody like, oh, that's Joe Smith. I locked up his uncle, his daddy, his sister. They're all into dope. He's probably holding. And then you go over and do an interaction. Sure enough, he's got a ball of meth in his pocket. I mean, that's the kind of stuff we deal with. It's more like a stereotype thing.
Well, I mean, it's all related because
it's all related.
I mean, even stereotypes themselves are based in truth.
I mean, there's something to it.
Yeah, there's always just
except we don't all eat. Cops don't all eat donuts.
But you would take a donut.
No, I don't.
I'm not going to turn one down. You ain't going to see me walking into Krispy Kreme. That's something you won't see me. And in uniform, absolutely not.
Yeah, well, it's too stereotypical.
I'll ask you a question, Jamie. Amongst the superstitions in law enforcement where you were, was it you would never say the Q word?
Never. Never, especially within the last hour of shift. That word was not. And if you said it over the radio, you'd be buried in the mic clicks trying to get you not to say it.
You'd be done.
You don't say it over air within an hour of shift ending. Yes.
Well, if you do, you're the one dealing with it when it comes in.
Yeah. Next thing you know, you're sitting on a body and you're working 6 hours overtime waiting for the coroner. Yeah.
It's even more so, I think, easier to develop these types of myths, modern myths or urban legends, because of the internet and how much bullshit is being sent through the internet, lies and fabrications, and you can use AI to pretty much make up anything now.
Abraham Lincoln told me you can believe everything you read on the internet.
Sure did.
I mean, give me 5 minutes and I could have an entire video of Abraham Lincoln actually telling you that. I could. That's just the way the world is today. So, I mean, these myths are easier to create. They're almost making reality. I think, archetypes have always built reality. That's just another way it works. It's like, does the civilization create the myth, or does the myth create the civilization? I think, Father, you gave a pretty good argument for the latter. I really do. Yeah. I really think it is that way. All right, April, that's my answer and ours, all of our answers to the question.
Okay.
It was a good question, by the way.
It was.
Yeah.
So the next question is, what is the difference between an unclean spirit and a demon? And I can qualify that with I'm the one that asked the question, and what I had read was that a demon is like the entity, and the unclean spirit is the impact it has on the person.
I mean, that's one way of describing it. I mean, again, this is a very semantics laden question, because it's like, what do we mean by these things, and what did Scripture mean by these things? And I think it really comes down to, again, and I believe this was pretty much the answer I gave you on the network, and I'll reiterate it again here so that everyone can hear what I have to say about it. And I'm going to take this from also both a theological and esoteric perspective. There's a missing link to why there seems to be confusion with the semantics about things like unclean spirit versus demon, or spirit versus soul. How often are these things just interchangeably used haphazardly? Nobody really thinks often about why. Maybe there is a difference, and maybe we should actually classify or categorize what that difference is so that it makes sense. And the reason why we're very lazy with that is because nobody really even knows anymore. You got to go back to the original Greek and read it that way, and then try to infer based upon contemporary sources of that time what they might have meant. One thing that we do know, and again, this is something I've said a lot of times, and it's worth always repeating, is that for the ancients, okay, there was no difference between the mind and the soul. None at all. None at all. They did not distinguish the difference between those two realities. We do today. We think the mind is some kind of like activity inside our heads, and we see spirit as something that transcends all that. Spirit does, but soul, we see the soul as being something else. When the ancients saw the soul and the mind as the same thing, hence why the Greek word for soul is psyche, and that is where we get, of course, our root word for the word psychology, which is the study of the mind and behavior. Okay, so the soul and the mind were the same thing to the ancients. So when they were talking about an unclean spirit, which would be the effect it has on the person, as you said, April, or whether it was a demon, there really wasn't a need to distinguish between the two things, because they saw them as all part of the spiritual world, which made up the incorporeal aspects of one's mind. The mind was the connection point. Now, it wasn't saying that the spiritual world was all in your head. Quite the opposite. It was really saying the other thing. It was saying that your mind is forever connected to this larger spiritual world, and that is your that there is no difference between that spiritual world and what is going on inside your mind. In other words, your thoughts and your behaviors are being shaped by that spiritual reality. So for them, there was no difference. And what is also ironic about that is that for the ancients, it's really actually much closer to the truth and less superstitious than it might seem. In other words, we tend to look back at the ancients and say, oh, they were such superstitious people. They thought that mental illness was demons, and in reality, if you understand how they looked at it, it was actually far more accurate far more realistic than the way we look at it today. Because of that, we now have this separation between what goes on in your head, hence why you need a psychologist if you have a mental disorder, but you might need a priest if you have a demon. All right. The ancients were like, well, no, they're one and the same thing. So you don't really have to really make the distinction between if it's mental illness or some kind of spiritual problem, because they are two sides of the same coin. Okay. And in modernity, we take this independent sentience as being a significant factor, when in reality that there is no such thing as independent sentience. There is sentience that's individuated, but not individual. Okay. There is nothing in any ancient sources. In fact, the further back you go, the more evident this is that there is no true independence. We're not really independent from each other. We like to think we are, particularly in the West, particularly in America. We like to think that we're, individuals. But in reality, we are so interdependent upon each other that the reason why society is so sick is because we're trying to act as though we're not. And so that spiritual world is what binds and connects us all. Okay. And that, of course, is integrated through the psyche, through the soul, through the mind, all the same thing. While psychology has tried so hard to make itself out to be a medical science, it lost a lot of its earlier connection to these things. So when you start reading like Freud, and even better, Jung, you see where the spiritual connection is absolutely evident. And then after you get to when you start getting to the behaviorists, that's when you see it all fall apart, and then they start making it a materialist perspective. And so psychology has largely become materialist in nature. It is largely divorced, and if not entirely divorced, from its spiritual roots. So when you get into these ancient concepts of spiritual warfare, these imagery of demons, these are archetypes that live inside the mind, but are connected to that larger archetypal ineffable reality. So it's not as though the mind is producing these as if they're just illusions. No, they're real things, but the mind's projection of them and participation in them can largely differ based upon the sensibilities of the person having that experience. And that's what creates the individuation factor, and why, in my opinion, when you're dealing with spiritual problem resolution, everybody needs both a priest and a psychologist, not one or the other, but both. Because you really kind of need to take care of the entire problem holistically in order to truly resolve the problem. So I get somewhat, I find it somewhat humorous, honestly, when they ask me, how do you tell the difference between mental illness and demonic possession? It's like, why do you feel it's so necessary to have to do so? I mean, you just go through the process. Okay, well, can it be solved by a doctor? Well, then great, then stick with the doctor. Can it be solved by a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a counselor? Then go to the counselor. But if those things aren't working, well, then go to the priest. We're still really stuck in the 19th century with this stuff.
We are. The Romantic period where you get Frankenstein's monster, it was the idea that, man is a machine, and therefore, the right pills or the right, surgical fix will get you going. And really, we still think like that because we've had this, it's necessary. Look, we talked about how culture is formed earlier on. You get this massive shift to Enlightenment thinking, to the scientific method, to technological breakthroughs, the Industrial Revolution. Of course, we then go, okay, all that spiritual stuff, let's dump that and focus on this because this is the new thing. Because also, human beings tend to be orientated to worship novelty. Mm-hmm. And so now we're actually in the process of synthesizing those things, but we're not there yet. And so we've still got this idea of, do you need a psychologist or do you need a priest? It's like, well, here's a shorthand for everybody, okay? You need a priest for absolutely everything, not because you need me, but because you need the church, you need God, okay? So you should be at mass. You need a priest all your life for everything. And then you've got other people in your life who fulfill special roles, like your spouse, like your kids, like your doctor, like your engineer, like the architect for your house. So, but I understand that the desire to separate things is twofold. One is the accusation that somehow priests are reckless, tell people to throw their pills away and all that.
Yeah,
kind
that
of
would be
stuff,
that would be reckless.
Never ever
That
heard
is
a
reckless.
priest say.
Yeah.
I've never heard a priest say that. I have heard random Christians say that, but so anyway, that's one. But really, it's feeding into this false separation that happens, because, like you said, the word that's used interchangeably in English translations of the New Testament for soul and spirit, they're not the same word. Like you said, I mean, soul is connected to the mind. Spirit is actually more connected to the gut.
Well, the wind,
It's
the
that language-
pneuma,
it's
right?
the
So
language.
it's taking in the breath of God is what it was. That
because people think, it's heart. It's actually more like gut. It's more gut instinct, that sort of thing. Is more the sort of operative space. But yeah, so these are false separations. And by the way, if someone's possessed by a demon, I've said this on the show multiple times, they are going to have psychological harm as well.
No doubt. You can't go through that without there being
it's
psychological
impossible not
trauma.
to.
Yeah. It's impossible. So you're going to need a more holistic approach to this. It's unfortunate that it's kind of difficult to, as a priest, as an exorcist, to get cooperation with the medical field. It really is. Sometimes there is, but not often.
A friendly psychiatrist is worth their weight in gold in this ministry.
Absolutely.
I was very, very, very fortunate that I did have, a God-fearing psychiatrist, so a medical doctor as well, and that is invaluable.
Absolutely. I also want to close up this question by saying that from a metaphysical standpoint, and maybe slightly esoteric, it's important to understand that from that point of view, sentience does not come from our cognitive faculties. We think it does. That's the illusion, Sentience does not come from cognition. It comes from the archetypal patterns that ignite the cognition within the brain. So the brain activity is animated by this higher reality. And because of the way it works with such perfect design, if I might say so, God's design, it feels as though the sentience is us. It feels as though there's a self there. And that's where the illusion of self actually comes from, because it is so perfect in its containment of being able to be projected through God's creation, in this case, the human being, that it feels like a self, and we feel important. We feel unique. And in reality, we're more like a transmitter. A more accurate reality would be that the brain is like an antenna receiving a signal, and it's nothing. It's dead unless if that signal were to.
I think that's how Dolores Cannon used to say, your head, your brain's an antenna.
Yeah, consciousness is. Consciousness is in here, yes, but the consciousness is the processing of the signal. That's the cognitive faculty. The actual sentience, the self-awareness, the instinct, that's coming from. That's the universe. That's the cosmos. That's the pneuma. That's what the church would call spirit. And that's what animates us into life. So getting back to the question, the difference between an unclean spirit and a demon, if we need to make that kind of distinction, that's one way to do it. But I think it's dangerous to make distinctions like that because, number one, it assumes that the demon is completely independent of everything else when it's not. And it assumes that the unclean spirit is completely independent of everything else when it's not. They are interchangeable realities, The demon cannot act without your participation. So demons would cease to be, or at least they'd be just inert nothingness. It would be just inert, pointless whatevers if we stopped participating in that. But our participation is what animates them to do what they do, or what we call these evil spirits. It's mythos. Remember we talked about mythos earlier? This is just another mythological language for describing a very high level spiritual psychology. And maybe it is time for better semantics and more accurate terminology. I think that does help. This show kind of helps to hopefully lead the way in this regard, because that's what we're all about here. And I'm not saying that the ancient way of talking about it is wrong, but I think it does mislead. I think it does. And this is where you get things like the devil made me do it. This is where you get, nonsense like this, where it's like, oh, I really didn't commit that sin. I was possessed by the devil. He did it. Well, bullshit. You participated in it, and the devil can't act unless you give him the power. So that's where it comes from. And where is that power? What is the power of the devil? It's one very basic reality. It's one very core reality. Fear. Fear is the power of the devil. Okay? You eliminate fear, you eliminate the devil. And I'm not talking about like caution. I'm not talking about like, learning experiences where there's danger. Yeah. I'm talking about being fearful. You look, from a Christian standpoint, you are made in the image of God, with all of the benefits that come with that. And as a Christian, if you understand the sacraments and you understand baptism, you understand how this metaphysically works, then why would you ever fear a demon? Because they have literally no power against you at all. The cross completely took that away, whatever that might have been. And so all you have to do is simply realize that. But when you fear and you think, oh, wait, I can't, demons are dangerous, they could get possessed, or that's when you have now already conceded. You've already given your freedom away to this thing, and now you're a slave to it. So fear is the true enemy, and that's why the devil likes to, in the archetype anyway, hides in the shadows, is this, monster that lives under the bed. It's almost like a boogeyman, right? That's what Satan is, right? And why does it have to behave like that in the archetypes? Well, because it's fearful. It creates fear, and fear is how it feeds, and that's what gives it life. So the more fear you put out, the more this thing comes alive and actually does the very things that you're afraid of. So stop fearing it, and then it can't act. It can't work. So I don't see the difference between an unclean spirit and a demon, because they are one side of the same, or two sides of the same coin, rather. Okay, April, I don't know. That was your question, so you can tell me if you have anything else you feel needs to be added.
After I asked the question, you kind of explained it. Where my mind went was, from the psychology perspective, is people have a certain set of core beliefs. Mm-hmm. And most of their actions come from those core beliefs, good or bad. And that's basically what you're saying there. Even if you think I'm a bad person and I do all these terrible things to people, then you're going to act on those because you think that's who you are. So it makes a lot of sense in that, aspect for me.
That's the danger of identification. When we identify with our attachments instead
giving yourself labels.
Yeah, when you give yourself a label, you've already given so much of your power away to it. When you identify yourself as one particular thing, I am this, I am that, I do this. And think about it. We live for labels, right? You can't even go to a function where you meet someone for the first time. What's the first damn thing out of their mouth? What do you do? Yeah. This is what I do for a living. You've already created an identification factor. And well, that's fine if you're just doing it to be, well, this is the action I take in the world, and I want you to understand a little bit about what I do with my time. That's fine. But that's not what it's about. It becomes more about, this is who I am. This is my identity now.
Yeah, they're estimating your value.
Yes.
by the labels you give yourself.
Which is what look, yeah. I mean, I know that it can be problematic to some. Father Chris has talked about the good side of this. I've talked a lot about the bad side of this. But I don't like wearing clerics in public unless I'm acting in an official capacity. Because if I wear clerics in public, I've already created an identity that is provocative and around here, negative. And so I don't need to create that kind of interaction. It's going to create a barrier to my conversing with you rather than opening you up and say, oh, here's somebody that's safe, because that's not how it's seen. Now, if I'm working, that's different, because then that's the expectation. And you're kind of putting on the archetype, so that you can act in that capacity, act in that archetype. Same thing with mass, right? You don't say mass in a t-shirt, unless you shouldn't. I'm sure there's probably some liberal priests out there that do, but you shouldn't. I mean, that's what the chasubles for.
They might be attempting to say mass, but
they wouldn't be real, right? And so you put on, the vestments, because the vestments are putting on the layers of the archetype of Christ in everything. The Christ that dies on the cross, the Christ that rises from the dead, that is the entirety of the archetype that is central to the Savior, that we become in that capacity. But as soon as Mass is over, they come off, right? You don't go walking, you don't go, likewise, just like you wouldn't go say the Mass with the t-shirt on, you're not going to go and buy groceries, dressed in full regalia. That's just not what you're going to do, because it's just not, it's not consistent with the archetype itself. These things are here to serve. They're not here to become us. We serve in that capacity. We don't become these things. And even if I'm not just using this as an example, you could do it with anything in secular life. If you identify too closely to your job, to your sexual identity, to your gender. I mean, we have gender politics now. All of these things have created an identity that is largely fabricated.
Fragile.
Very fragile.
It's too fragile. And so, when I had little kids, we use the tactic with food, right? Because, kids are not born with palates that can take all sorts. And so, you give them something, and I don't think anyone was born really loving sprouts, to be honest, but I love them now, but I don't think I did when I was a kid. But
roasted with a lot of honey, maybe garlic. I think I could do that.
Bacon
grease.
But we call bacon celery in our house.
Oh, really?
Let's put some more celery in it.
I like that.
It sounds healthy.
Yeah, it does.
It's bacon.
Yeah, sure.
But with my young kids, instead of when they say I don't like that, that's an identity statement. I do not like that, right?
Yeah.
And so the response that we'd give is, you don't feel like that today. Mm-hmm. So instead of saying I don't like that, I don't feel like that today. Now, obviously with food, which is very, not to you and I, we take it very seriously, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a very trivial matter. How much more should that be true of other things? I mean, and this is the whole essence of the New Testament direction. This is dogma, that our primary identity should be in Christ, not in anything else.
Sure.
It should be in Christ, and because the reason for that isn't some, like I say, isn't some like so you can be a card carrying, member of the Christian party. No, it's because only Christ is sufficient. Is the rock that can bear the load of that weight of identity. Your sexuality can't do it. What clothes you want to dress in today can't do it. What food you eat can't do it. All of it will pass away. Christ is the rock. He will never pass away.
Chasing after things that are transitory.
That's right. And so our only and therefore the only entity in heaven and earth that can say I am with no danger to themselves is God.
And he leaves it at that. He just says I am, and it ends right there.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that.
That's why we can base not the entirety. We've got our little characteristics and the shell on the outside. I'm not saying it's unimportant, but the primary identity. If it, I that's why I don't like the pride parade thing. And look, I've got no. I've not got a burning issue to I don't want to convert homosexuals. I'm not that kind of guy, but like the pride parades, and I kind of understand it, oppression and so part of me can understand where it comes from.
Sure, yeah,
but
of
when
course.
You see people's entire identity
wrapped up
essentially
in it,
based around who they're attracted to. Like, man, I think that's really fragile, and my anecdotal experience is that those people are really fragile people. Now, by the way, that's why you should be very careful in not destroying them.
Yeah.
I really would encourage anybody to shift away from identities that are based on your own ego or your own thoughts or essentially on sand, and shift to something far more robust.
Yeah, I agree. All right, April, I think we can probably handle that last question.
Okay. In Matthew 12:31-32, it says that if you blaspheme against the Holy Spirit, it will not be forgiven in this age or the ages to come. Does that mean it is an unforgivable sin? It says in Mark that blasphemy against Jesus is forgivable. How can you be forgiven for blasphemy against Jesus, but not the Holy Spirit if they are one and the same?
Well, because they are functionally different. So while, yes, you could say that the Holy Spirit's God, Jesus is God under Christian theology, they are functionally different, though. That's what makes the Trinity a unique reality, is that, yes, all three persons are God, but each person of the Holy Trinity has a different function within that that reality. And so Jesus, blasphemy against Jesus, of course, is forgivable, because Jesus is what opens the door to salvation. What the problem is with the Holy Spirit is that the Holy Spirit is what functionally grants the grace that makes the perfection of salvation possible for you. So if you reject that, it's not that God says, well, screw you, you were mean to the Holy Spirit, so you're not going to get forgiven. It's that you have rejected that which forgives you. And it's by it's by God's own respect for your free will that this reality takes place. So it's not as though God is making a judgment against you. You've made a judgment against yourself. And because he respects your freedom even more than your holiness, because freedom's higher than holiness. What have I told you? He puts freedom above holiness. Absolutely. Every single time, because you can't have holiness without freedom. So freedom has to come at the top. Okay. And so if you, in your freedom, decide, I don't want the Holy Spirit, I don't like the Holy Spirit, I hate that thing, then you have rejected that which makes forgiveness possible. And so how can you be forgiven if you've said, I don't want forgiveness? Because that's what you've said by rejecting it. You say, I don't want forgiveness. So that's why it's an unforgivable sin, not because God doesn't want to forgive you or because he's angry now that you've done something that you shouldn't have done. It's that you're basically saying, I don't want forgiveness. And as long as you stay in that state, then how can you receive it? You've chosen not to receive it. And that's all that means.
You're actually in hell. You're actually in hell already. It's the definition of being in hell.
It really is.
Jesus is whipped, hanged, a crown of thorns put on his head. But when he dies, the centurion says, surely this man was the Son of God. Mm-hmm. We know that there's forgiveness for having wounded Christ, right? Because that's the definition of how we're redeemed.
Yeah.
What the bishop's saying about the Holy Spirit is absolutely, like I say, it's the textbook definition of hell. You think of the Spirit as that psalm, deep cries out to deep, that's the relationship the Holy Spirit has with it. It's spirit to spirit with us. Mm-hmm. The sin against the Holy Spirit is us closing our door, our spiritual, it's a lack of the will of our spirit to be in communion with the Holy Spirit. And therefore it's bad to look at it as though, God's gonna, everything else is okay, but this one, bang, no, it's think about when Jesus says, knock, the door shall be opened, right? The lock is on your side. So the sin against the Holy Spirit is when we turn the lock on our side of the door. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, how can God forgive us if you don't let him in?
Yep.
Absolutely right. So I believe that was your question, April. Does that answer it for you?
It does.
It's a common question. Comes up a lot.
It had to do with I had a family member who supposedly rejected Christ and all these things. And so we were having a discussion about, well, is that blasphemy or not? And I think that, she eventually came back to Christianity. So she really didn't blaspheme because she didn't totally reject it.
Right. If you come back, see, it has to be a complete and total rejection. You can look, everyone has their moments of darkness and gets angry at God and says, screw this, screw you. And that's one thing. It's another thing to spend the rest of your life in absolute defiance and hatred of God.
There's also there's a positive conclusion to this teaching as well. Mm-hmm. It says that sin against the Holy Spirit cannot be forgiven neither in this life nor in the life to come. Well, that tells you everything else can be forgiven in the life to come.
That's very important, and a lot of people miss that one. Okay, let's take our first break here. When we come back, we'll be talking with our returning guest, Michelle Ferguson, about spiritual realities and vibrations and all that good stuff. Don't go away.
There was once a song, a rhythm not yet undone. Your melody through my mind, a sound that burns. darkness between every word, a battle that couldn't be won. There was once a dream, a whisper we dared to conceive, a vision beyond what we were, a world waiting for us to believe. Escaping moments, trying to remember what we once called forever. What now is gone? What now is There was once a time, a moment not long ago, the safety of your embrace that left my heart still reaching out for
Welcome back, everyone, to the second hour of Vestiges After Dark. Let's jump in here and start talking about the paranormal and energy, how it relates with our returning guest, Michelle Ferguson, who's now prefers to be called Raven Willow. So we'll be referring to her going forward as Raven Willow. And I think most of her social media is under that as well. So you can look her up and find out more about the work that she does, and we'll have those that information for you in the coming 2 hours. So don't go away. Lots to come. Our guest tonight is Raven Willow, who is an Akashic Records reader and spiritual practitioner who works with individuals seeking insight into personal patterns, emotional healing, and spiritual direction. Through her work, she focuses on mindfulness, self-awareness, and intentional living as tools for personal growth and resilience. Raven shares her perspectives on spiritual sensitivity and the role of inner balance in navigating experiences that people may interpret as paranormal or energetic in nature. She is also active on social media, where she discusses spirituality, personal development, and intuitive practices under the name Psychic Empath Raven Willow. Please welcome Raven back to Vestiges After Dark. How you doing tonight, Raven?
Welcome back, Raven.
What's up, everybody?
Hello.
Welcome.
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to have you back.
See you guys again.
Yeah,
It's
me
been a
too.
minute.
Yeah.
It has been. It's been about a year, was it, that you've been on?
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, we're so happy that you're back, and can't wait to talk about this subject tonight. So, last time you talked about the Akashic records, and we had a great discussion on archetypes and how it affects people. And I think we talked a little bit about fear and how the internal reality is largely responsible for how we experience what happens externally, maybe to the point that the internal reality is what creates the external, which I would argue it absolutely does. And it might even have the greater part to play in how we understand what reality is. But when it comes to paranormal experiences and how people engage with the strangeness that can occur, what does that internal reality have to do with it? So let's, I guess, start right there.
Yeah. So it kind of, you guys will probably understand what I'm gonna say about this. So whatever you believe wholeheartedly, you will bring into existence. So if you're going to live your life in fear because of, whatever happened to you and PTSD and trauma and all the things, but if you still refuse to face those things, well, one, of course, it causes you to treat other people not very well.
Yep, absolutely.
And you make bad choices in your life and a lot of those things. So when you're in that negative headspace yourself, you're going to attract negative things. It's kind of like she's a cop, so like she'll get this.
Retired.
If you're retired, if you're like a druggie and you move to a new town, even if it's like some podunk town in the middle of nowhere, immediately you're going to attract all your little
You're
friends.
going to know where to go. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
like attracts like.
exactly.
Yeah.
So when you're in those kind of headspaces, one, you're attracting things that already exist that feed off of that energy, but you're also creating new ones. And once something is, then it is.
So it really is the internal reality creates the external. You're in agreement there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, you can't really see it, thankfully, but I'm kind of still covered in hives in my face. They're all down my back. Like I have my dogs.
Girl, what happened to
my
you?
Computer.
Oh no.
I react to stress and highly emotional situations.
Oh.
My body reacts in hives. Like you will have physical responses to things in life. And it can cause you to have like heart problems, diabetes, even.
Stress.
It can bring on cancer and all of these things if you don't get rid of the negative, whatever that negative is. Yeah.
So that's going to be, I think, a big part of what we need to talk about tonight, because I can tell you from being a pastor and, having to pastorally counsel a lot of people, and, nobody comes to you because things are great. They come to you because they have problems and they want you to maybe fix it for them.
Same here.
Same with me.
Same with you. I mean, if you're in this work, we can all relate to it. April is a licensed therapist, and I'm sure she can agree that it's the same problem. So one of the things I hear a lot, and you probably hear it too, is that people will come and they'll say, this is wrong with my life. This is wrong. And they'll list this whole litany of things that are wrong. And then you start talking to them about, well, let's explore this further, and let's look at this and let's look at that. And then you get the real person coming out, and it's just negative. I hate this person. I hate that. I've got this. And they just keep regurgitating all of the things they hate. They're just negative. I'll never be successful. I'll never find any happiness in this.
You're right. You won't.
And it's like they're creating it as they do this. They're creating the seed for it to so they really are self-fulfilling prophecy here. How do you reverse that cycle for someone that's that bad off? What would you start with?
Well, one, they have to do it themselves.
Sure.
So just like you or anybody else, even a psychiatrist, like I'm only like a vessel, a helper,
A
to that
facilitator.
person.
Yeah.
Um, but I would take them probably down like a quantum meditation session. It's basically like hypnotherapy, but I'm taking you like on a journey through lives and timelines, and like whether you want to call it heaven or source or whatever that paradise is, like we're going to get there and we're going to figure out what you're not facing, and you're going to face it along this path while we go on this journey, kind of thing. And it can get highly emotional, and people have breakdowns. You were kind of scaring me earlier when I was listening. You're talking about people want to sign up to be a minister because they want to do exorcisms.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you even understand how like intensely invasive that is on like what? like what? That's terrifying.
I mean, it really, it shows the naivety, I guess. I mean, there's almost like an innocence to a request like that, because the person really doesn't know what they're asking.
Well, it's also total ego, isn't it?
Oh, and there's that part too.
Absolutely.
Like, why do you presume that people are going to want you to be the one that helps them? Like, because being called to the priest, I mean, all priests are exorcists by virtue of ordination, but I mean, most priests are not exorcists. I mean, you know, they're sacramentally able to do it, but very, very few. I mean, amongst the priesthood, it's a weird group of people like me and Bishop Brian who enter this apprenticeship to sort of, you know, be effective at doing that stuff. So the thought, I certainly did not put myself forward for ordination and saying, right, I want to be an exorcist.
Even when I have clients just on a table, even for like a Reiki session, or even, you know, quantum meditation, I'm constantly checking on them. Are they getting to a point where it's overwhelming? Like, do we need to bring them out of this? And like, let's have some water and we'll get back, you know, like, you don't put that much stress on somebody and just take it casually, like, I'm gonna be an exorcist. Like, what? Yeah. Like, so unprofessional. That's terrifying. Yeah.
It really, I mean, I mean, you think, I mean, it's scary for me too, because I have to deal with it. But it really comes down to just a complete and total lack of understanding. And I try to be transparent and hope them, you know, help them to understand, hopefully, what it involves and what the right approach is. And I mean, this show's about that. This is why we talk about all the topics we talk about, because look, no one system, no one religion, no one anything is ever going to be able to have all the answers. And you know, the point of wisdom is realizing that we don't have all the answers. We need other people to help share their views in order to arrive at more wisdom. And so that's what started this show, and has led to wonderful guests like yourself being on it. You know, is that we learn from each other, and then we can hopefully walk away with more information than we started. And that's where healing can begin, because that's the problem, right? With people that are so negative, it becomes such a habit, such a lifestyle. They forget being able to have lived as anything else. It just becomes an identity.
And their house is infested with it now, and their whole environment is in. It's kind of like a smoker. Sorry if anybody smokes or anybody out there. Each to his own. But I grew up with smokers, and you don't realize how much it stinks until you get out of that, and you're like, whoa, and then you smell it, and you're like, dang. So they get caught up in everything's negative. Their house, their environment, and things can hold energy. Like, items can become haunted just with somebody's bad juju thoughts hanging out in there.
Sure.
You know, so they become completely blinded to everything that's going on around them. And honestly, some people that are in that state of mind, they're definitely not going to contact somebody like me. I don't know if they would contact you guys. They kind of just hang out there and stay there, is what I've found.
I think a lot of times they don't contact us, which is unfortunate. They should come to people like us, because I mean, we're probably the most equipped to at least set them on the right track. And like you said, though, and it's very important that we can't do it for you. I say, how many times have this audience heard me say, you know, we get clients that come with these spiritual problems and they expect me to be like Gandalf. You know, I just like say an incantation, it goes away. and
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, it really, and it's like, it doesn't work like that. I am a facilitator. I can guide you, but you have to take the steps, you know, and you have to make the decisions. And most importantly, you have to do the work, because it's a lot to reverse all that. As you know, trauma weighs on us in ways that nothing else really can. You know, take a traumatic experience. Take just one traumatic experience. Doesn't matter what it is. And that one traumatic experience can cancel out 20, 30, 40,000 positive experiences that you've had in your life. You'll forget about all those, and you'll just gravitate on that one trauma until it consumes you. So you're saying meditation and taking them into it sounds like using a little bit of hypnosis and meditation. You're sort of teaching them a different sort of thought pattern. So is that where the energy work begins? Is it starts with the thinking process?
Yes. And it's all recorded too, so they can go back and listen to it later. But they're literally going down this journey, this path. And he just have to be in a session with me or get a reading from me or whatever to understand.
Sure.
But I'm going on this journey with them. I can see what's going on. I'm getting like the story. And so I'm walking through it with them. And so whatever they're encountering, then that's where we're going. So if it's something absolutely terrifying, like I warn people ahead of time, like if it's absolutely terrifying, we're still walking right towards it, you know. But of course, if they're having like mental collapse, it's like, no, let's stop. But
yeah, sure.
And even like their homes need to be cleansed. Their spaces need to be cleansed. So it's not just your mind and your spirit or your soul or whatever you want to call it. I call it energy. That needs to be cleansed, but you need to cleanse your environment of the people that are toxic too.
Yeah, definitely.
Like that's a pattern lots of people have a hard time with.
Very much so. They feel almost obligated to keep toxic people around, regardless of who they are. And from my vantage point, you know, being working in a Christian capacity, there's that added weight of the 10 Commandments saying honor your father and mother, but a lot of father and mothers have been abusive and toxic to their children, and now the children are having to live with those consequences, and now they're feeling guilt over having to remove them from their life, and they don't know how to deal with that, you know?
We break a lot of like those family lines and ties and things, and it might be over talked about now, and breaking family lines and curses, whatever people call it, and it's all over YouTube.
Yeah.
But it's true, because just since losing my mom, and my dad's been gone for a little while longer than that, but I'm going through this grieving process and pain process and just mind effery. It's just like I could feel like my dad's just defeatedness in life, and I could feel, I felt all the things that my mom went through, which was like just horrific.
Sorry to hear that.
But I had to like break away from those things and just be like, it has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
And I literally felt like that weight. Like it took a while. I'm not saying I just said some words and was like, oh, everything's better.
No Gandalf,
like,
right?
It took a while. No Gandalf. It's a process, and you have to be like just willing to go wherever you have to go to just shed the stuff. It's when you keep carrying it around too, that just feeds whatever negativity even caused it to happen to you in the first place. So you carrying it around, like you might call it forgiveness. You don't have to forget, but forgiveness is, I'm not going to carry this crap anymore. You did that to me. It's on you. Like that's your pile of crap right there. Yeah. That's all forgiveness is. So people got to get rid of that pride about that, you know?
I think that's right. You know, forgiveness doesn't necessarily mean, you know, that you have to engage any further. It doesn't mean, you know, turning the other cheek doesn't mean that you keep letting them slap you left and right. It's essentially giving the benefit of the doubt. And then once you've reached a point where that betrayal has repeated itself, you have every right to remove yourself from that situation, that individual, whatever it is, and to protect yourself, because no one else is going to, right? I mean, very rarely are you ever going to have somebody that steps in and defends you. A lot of times you have to be your own defense. And that means toxic people need to go. Once they've proven themselves to be that way, you can't keep them around. Doesn't matter if it's a mother or a father. Doesn't mean you have to hate them. And it doesn't mean, you know, you have to treat them badly, but it does sometimes mean the relationship is over.
Yes. Well, just going off of that, like before my mom passed away, my stepdad passed away, and this man was mind-bogglingly cruel and just like off the chart, like, and perverted mind and all kinds of nasty with this fella. And he didn't want to go away when he passed away. And he just kept coming back and coming back and coming back. And I had to deal with that. He was kind of a hoarder too. And so I was taking anything that was left of his that we kind of had to hold on to until my mom died and the estate thing or whatever. And all the kids got whatever. But so I put all of his stuff in this room and just sealed it and saged it and constantly like just keep all in there, you know?
Yeah.
And like he literally like tried to strangle me.
Oh my God.
Like, and I could see him, I could feel it just tickled, but I'm like, and then I scared him because and he didn't quite figure out what the hey with me yet because he was still, and I was like, you're really gonna try to strangle your daughter? Really? You're going to do that? And he ran away and he just kept coming back. And so it was a big torment. And I had to have like my family hold him there. I passed on some of my family and call for anybody that could come and just take him. But I did it, even as horrible as he was, I was like, take him somewhere where he can heal. Because if you don't, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. Like I didn't want any, like just no ill will, just go and fix yourself wherever that is. And I don't know what or who or what this was, but have you guys ever watched that? It's one of the earlier X-Men movies when the San Francisco Bridge gets lifted up and sent over the bay.
Yes.
And they've got like this big honking dude with the helmet and he like bursts through the walls. And that's kind of what came in and just grabbed him and took him because he was just refusing to go. And I needed him to be gone.
Yeah.
So you can like, your negative thoughts can just entrap you after death too. Like you gotta just let it go, you know?
That's what people don't understand is that it becomes an eternal reality. I mean, it transcends your current existence, and you don't want to go down that road. One of the things that we deal with more than anything else, I think people think that we're just, you know, walking around doing exorcisms with the, you know, people on their beds all day long. And it's like, that's like the least of what we do, if it's ever what we do. Most of my work is identifying what is essentially environmental problems that become attachments, and sometimes it's a physical attachment to the person, but a lot of times it's an environmental disturbance. And when you get to the root of these disturbances, what they are is the residual energy of a person who's died, and all that's left, because that's the only identity they had left in life, was this negative, toxic person. Then that's all they are now, and so that just gets stuck, and it will attach to family members. It will stay in an environment, and it becomes what would be often referred to as a demonic infestation or something, when in reality it's not like a demon in the traditional sense. But for all intents and purposes, it might as well be the same thing.
It's acting the same way.
Yeah, because it acts the same way.
Well, it's part of that whole it's part of that. I think pretty much most religions that have anything like this, they'll agree, like once one knows you, they all know you. It's like a hive mind. It's just like the collective consciousness of higher vibrational things is, yeah.
Yeah, we
They
talked a
all
lot
know
about
you.
that in the first hour. We talk about how there's really no individual person. It's an individuation of the same energy. And yeah, it creates these families of energy, and some of them are pretty toxic. So let's talk about fear in this, because I mean, you emphasize grounding in mindfulness rather than fear. That's kind of the modus operandi that you adopt. So why do you think fear-based approaches to things like paranormal experience or even just trauma have become so common and so popular in our current culture today?
One, it gets viewers, it gets ratings, whatever. Like, just like my podcast I do on YouTube, I did one on skinwalkers. Like, I get a ton of views right away, but then I'm going into like reality. Like, I see these things, I encounter them. It's not as like crazy as like, it's like the Conjuring house story. It's like, it wasn't that crazy as that movie was, like not even close
Not even
to
close.
what that movie was, right?
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's like, I don't know what that was, but yeah. So it's like that. So yeah. Anyway, I started rambling there, but
No, it's good.
We do that on this show.
Yeah, we do all the time. Tangents are
welcome.
That's
I never do.
he's the worst offender. Don't listen to him.
but like of course, people that go through extremely traumatic things, and trust me, I've been there. Like, I have lived in extreme fear at points, and I know that when I'm in those times in my life, I can feel the negative start to encroach. It's like you're the battery, and that's their food. And it just starts coming, like seeping in. I'm not saying like a whole bunch of entities come rushing in, but just like those negative thoughts starts the whole thing, like
Start to spiral.
rolling. Yeah.
I know that feeling.
Yeah, me too.
And it's not that it's wrong or any, I've been there, you've been there. Everybody goes through these things that just that intense fear. And if you've lived through it most of your life, like I have, like I'm still literally day to day going through a process because my mind will just start to make stuff up. Well, what if this happens? What if that happens?
Yeah.
Because I'm just so used to that my whole life. Yeah. And it's like, stop it. Nothing's happening. Just stop it. But you got to be able, the most important thing probably, but beyond anything, is you got to be able to face yourself too. And sometimes that's a hard pill to swallow. Sometimes people do things that aren't so great along the way, but that doesn't mean they're bad people. But yeah, you got to forgive yourself too.
That might come first. Honestly, I think sometimes what we hate the most in other people, when we say we hate someone, it's really because there's something in ourselves that we don't like that we're projecting into that other person.
I say that all the time. It's the loudest person in the room complaining about something. That is the person doing that thing. If the loudest person in the room is like, pornography this, pornography that, and look at this person, and oh my gosh, and they're just loud. It's like, and then the next thing you know, they're on the news because they're like really? Yeah. Yeah. It's like, yeah.
Well, the challenge I find, we talked about the first type of person, which is like just the person that's just negative all the time. And then they wonder why life's not going well. And they're like, I'll never be happy. It's like, well, no, you won't, because you keep saying that and that makes it true. There's another kind that we also see, and maybe you can offer some help to them as well. And that is these natural, we get some of them quite frequently, honestly, these natural empaths. They've never been trained. They don't know how to deal with it. They're sort of naturally psychic. And I'm not saying that I believe everybody has this ability. I just think some people are more tuned into it than others. And sometimes that's accidental. They didn't try for it. They're not even particularly interested in having psychic thoughts or feelings, or they just are naturally wired that way, and they are absorbing everything like a sponge, and it's making them crazy. They don't know how to deal. They don't know how to filter it out. So what can we do for people that are in that boat?
Yeah, because I'm kind of in that boat.
Yeah. I am definitely at that boat. I don't people very well for very long.
Me either.
Which is sad because I'm a Libra and I like to be social, but
Yeah.
yeah. But people that are on the spectrum too, all these things about this, these are highly sensitive people. Like they really are sensing and hearing and feeling all of these things, and that's why they get overwhelmed. So that's like a whole nother level of sensing things. But I'm really good at it now, not that I'm perfect at it, but empaths often feel everybody's everything, so they take that emotion and they think that's their emotion, and they can't figure out that they're feeling that dude's pissed off over there.
Yes.
And and then once empaths feel so much pain and so much whatever and those kind of emotions, then the anger starts to come out because it's just been too long of too much stuff. And so empaths have to self-isolate a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that stuff builds over time, and then it just comes to a point where you're full and you have to let it out, and that usually ends up in a tantrum.
Yeah. Mine come out on already broken inanimate objects.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, that looks like it needs a hammer.
It'll be the silliest thing that triggers it too.
Yeah.
But there's a bit of catharsis
Yeah.
in that, though. I mean, I know my wife sometimes gets irritated with me when I do. I'll break something that, just to direct my anger at something.
I've seen it.
Yeah, you've seen it. I've thrown there was this video of me going around a while ago. I threw a printer out the door. It was funny because there was a car driving by, and then you can see as soon as they see that, they go really, really slow, and then you get all these faces looking at what the hell just happened there.
If you go to hell for hating printers, we're all hellbound.
There you go.
This printer had it coming. By
This
the
one
way.
it did have it coming. But I try to direct my anger at inanimate things because I don't like harming people, even inadvertently. And sometimes when you are charged up, it's easy to make mistakes. So I try to do that. And I always find that does create catharsis. I don't like bottling it up. I think that's the biggest problem. I think that's what creates a lot of this anxiety that people have. If you are a person that suffers from a lot of anxiety, I would say that comes from you having conditioned yourself, probably because society told you had to.
Yes.
But keeping it all locked inside, you're not allowed to show it. Don't show these emotions. They're bad emotions. You can't be that way. And it's like, you know what? Screw that shit. I'm gonna break something if I need to break something because I don't want to carry it anymore. And once I do that, it's gone. I'm fine 5 minutes later. So I'm all for it. Break the broken things. It's okay.
I grew up with race car drivers and like crash up derby people, and it's like, yeah, I'm used to let's smash it up.
Yeah. I mean, it works. It does work. And I threw out it was yesterday. We were making tiki drinks to sit around the pool. It was a day off and we wanted to relax. And so I have these glass containers where I was mixing them. And I put quite a significant amount of very expensive rum into this drink. It was probably like a $40 drink by the time it was all done. And as I'm stirring it up, the mixing spoon hit the glass and it popped a little hole in it and the drink went all over the floor. And I was so pissed because, see, this is the thing that I got pissed about.
That'll do it.
This was a set of 3, and the first one did that about 2 years ago. And so I thought it was just like, okay, maybe it was a manufacturer default or something. It was weak glass, whatever. So I think this couldn't possibly happen again. And sure enough, it happened again. So you know what happened to the third one, don't you? That one went smashed into the trash.
Well, what happened is you regulated the vibrations to end up like the first two.
Yeah.
Destroying it.
It's never going to happen again. So I tell my wife, I said, okay, we're going to find the high. I don't care if these mixing glasses cost $600. I want the most expensive mixing glass you can get so that this never happens again. But that's just an example, a very trivial example. But, I think it's important to let your anger out because the anger is not the problem. Anxiety is the problem. And anger withheld creates anxiety, and that creates the conditions that, lead to Well, anything,
Yeah.
even hives, I mean, even hives, you know
Yes.
this though, you know this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, and anger leads to anxiety, fear, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Medications can, and diet can too.
Yeah, sure.
Like, all this crap food, dude, in Australia. Don't eat food in America ever.
No, I've been to America, and you don't eat well there.
Stay away from the fast
Bishop
food,
Brian
folks.
does. Bishop Brian does.
I do eat well,
You
but
eat
I
real
mean,
food.
I got to pay for it though. Most people don't want to pay for it.
I'm quite good at cooking, so
Yeah.
I even though I kind of would like to live in America for a bit, but I think the fact that I like cooking means I'm incompatible.
Oh my gosh, I'm a teacher too, so I teach English, and I have some students in Italy, and one of the kids is like, "Yeah, we're gonna go to New York and what blah blah," and I was like, "You need to still make your own food. You can't eat the pasta here. You will get sick." And they're like, "What?"
It's
I'm
not
like,
pasta.
No, really.
It's not real pasta.
Yeah. They're just it's just shocking. Yeah.
So
diet.
So how do you encourage people in your work to balance openness to spiritual experiences? Because we don't want to cut ourselves off from them, but also to maintain, a sense of, well, first of all, being able to recognize that which is harmful, but also to keep a bit of a healthy skepticism and critical thinking regarding, what could be imagination versus what's really happening. So how do you help people to sort of I guess what I'm asking is, how do you help people to discern?
Well, one, anybody can check for EMF in their house, and they probably should be with all this 5G stuff going around. This can make everybody go cuckoo.
So that's what it is. It's the 5G.
I wouldn't put anything
really
past.
can.
There's been
It-
some
it
crazy behavior
messes
going on.
There
with
is.
people.
Yeah. People are nuts
not,
today. They're nuts.
It's not healthy.
Yeah.
So that's definitely out there. But I gauge people because I'm an empath and I read people anyway. So when I get like booked for a reading, I ask them like initial questions and I have an initial conversation with them. If somebody's not quite sounding in their right mind, I'm not gonna take that on as a client, because one, that's horrible to take money from somebody that's struggling.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I don't just send them off into the wind. Like, I have other people that can help. Like, I have friends that are actual psychiatrists and acupuncturists, and I'm like, I'll still be here and I'll still work with you, but you're going to work with this kind of person too.
Sure.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
I mean, it's important. I think you have to have a certain element of charitable category to this.
I say crazy things all the time because I see and speak and converse with all kinds of things, and I sound crazy as hell. Sorry, y'all, but I do. But you can tell if somebody's like really like crazy. I don't want to use that word, but just a wrap around for whatever that psychiatric disease is. I don't know, but the hearing things, the seeing things, like, they don't speak right, they don't act right, they can't interact right. Like, you can tell the difference. Like, I can hold a conversation with you guys. Like, I'm not like, oh, something's coming after me and I'm running around and I'm paranoid about it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Right.
Like, I'm not crazy acting about it, kind of thing, I guess.
Yeah.
That's horrible to say. Please don't message me with horrible messages. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't know what it's called.
No, you're good.
Schizophrenia.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you.
Let's put a label on it.
It's sort of like any number of disassociative kind of characteristics where you think, whatever I'm speaking to, it's not you.
Right.
And some people do that deliberately and on purpose, but some people are ill, or they've been. I mean, the spiritual illness is habituating. It's why sin. I'll be very careful saying this, really, but it's why sin can lead to, I would say, spiritual disease rather than mental. I'm not talking about mental health things. I'm not saying people with schizophrenia are possessed.
Right.
But if you spiritually are in sin, what I mean by that is You know you're degraded. You know you've affected yourself,
and they acknowledge it.
And
Like,
you
they're
hide
like
it.
proud of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. But and you kind of, the real you that is not that sin retreats within itself, and that's why you can't connect to it. You think, I'm not speaking to you. I don't know who I'm speaking to, but it's not you.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, let's talk about that, because what part, how much of a role do you think personal responsibility plays in this? Is it 100%, or is it a mixture of factors? How do you view that, Raven?
Well, I say it's 100%, but that doesn't mean I agree with the punishment that's handed down.
Yeah.
Like, it's still your choice to do whatever the heck you did. But yeah, the punishments that we, especially in America, that we hand down, sorry if anybody disagrees, but the whole justice system in general needs to be gutted and fixed.
We can agree on that.
I mean, you're not going to get any disagreement from us. I don't know about Father Chris.
26 years. I know it needs to be.
It's not helping.
Flipped on its head.
Every time I watch a documentary about some aspect of the criminal justice system in America, I just think, oh my god, it is the main thing. It's the main reason I've not moved to America.
I don't blame you.
And I was a cop too. I was a cop for 10 years in England. So it's not like I'm paranoid of law enforcement, but wow, it seems to be, how much can you afford to not go to jail?
The real slap in the face, is that they call it the Department of Corrections. They're not correcting anything.
I can verify that. They're not.
They're
correcting
making
anything.
people worse.
They're
setting up people to fail so they can get them back and make more freaking millions of dollars.
100%. 100%, I agree.
I mean, I view penal servitude in a much more traditional sense. I mean, I agree with you. Department of Corrections is a ridiculous name. They call it the same here in Australia. They don't in England. In fairness, at least in England, it's called His Majesty's Prison Service, right?
Well, at least it's honest. It's honest.
It's honest. Now, I actually think, all rehabilitation is hit and miss and depends on the individual personal choices of somebody within that system. So I think placing that burden on any government agency is a folly. But anyway, I'll stop talking about that.
Yeah. Like, there's a lot of people in prison that should have been like getting psychiatric help, or most people in prison in America at least have some kind of drug something going on there. Like, they're not getting any drug counseling or help there. They just get thrown in jail.
It's true. No,
help.
No, that's true.
I mean, most of the crime that's committed is not done
I'd
by.
rather they're in jail than burgling my house.
Well, I mean, in some degree, but I mean, you'd like though that if they're going to go to jail, that when they do get out, that they won't burgle your house, but they're going to be more likely to. Yeah. They'll be more likely to once they get out, because
proper rehabilitation resources would be nice, but that's not happening.
I think punishment is about retribution. It's not about fixing problems. It's just they want you to hurt is all they care about.
I think we're placing it, and I think it's very difficult to place that burden on any agency at all. What we're experiencing is the community degradation that has come with hyper rationalism and materialism. I mean, so we've got these institutions that come from the Christian church, including prisons, by the way. There's a chapel in every prison in England and in Australia. It came from the monastic structure, right? That's why you're in a cell. It's from the monastics. And so, but what you can't do is remove all of the spirituality of that, the guts of that, which are in fact the Christian church, and then expect it to have any other effect than just basically keeping them away from me for a bit. So, so in other words, we're placing an awful lot of burden on government to replace what we've lost because we're not sharing.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be government, but I mean, since government's the one that has the authority to authorize the punishment
on violence.
But that doesn't mean they cannot link up with agencies to help with the actual corrections factor or the rehabilitation factor. And I'm not sure they're always good at that. Now, there are some prison systems that do, and I've heard some major success stories that would validate what you just said. Some of these amazing rehabilitations have occurred where people, went to prison for these horrendous crimes, and they had this amazing chaplain that they met there, and it completely reformed their life. And then they got out, and now they're just these amazing people. There's a lot of stories like that. It does happen.
There are
It's
success stories.
In many
rare.
ways, the massive crime is actually more likely that somebody will end up in that place. For chronic offenders, they're feeding their drug habits, so they just steal from cars, and the chronic offending in that manner. They're the ones that aren't going to be rehabilitated. Yeah. Somebody who's committed a murder which weighs on their conscience, they're much more likely to be able to be rehabilitated.
Yeah. And all the people that are in there for drugs or using drugs, all of this negative energy and all of these things, that is a lightning rod for negative anything if you're addicted to substances. Yeah.
And that's really a tough thing right now, because even
Yeah.
simple things like, even things that are illegal in some places, like, alcohol is legal everywhere. Marijuana is legal in a lot of states. And I'm not necessarily saying that, those are bad things. I mean, I drink, but, I think the excess, the addiction factor, it does create vulnerability spiritually.
That's why you have to have your personal responsibility to
Yeah.
know your limit, know
It is
what
a
you should
choice.
and shouldn't take. Yes,
It
it
is
is
a
your
choice.
word choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
And if your choice means I end up having things stolen by you, I want you in jail.
I want you in jail too, but I want you getting help while you're there. I don't want you just sitting on your ass.
I don't want you getting worse.
Yeah, getting worse.
Yeah.
Joining the prison gang so that when you get out,
Oh,
you can wreak havoc on society. I have nothing against prison. I just want you to actually use that time to find yourself again, and when you get out, you can maybe be a helpful person instead. That's what I want to see. I just feel like it's just a place to forget about them because society doesn't want to deal with them, and they don't care. And it's big money. It's big money today. I mean, they privatize a lot of these prisons, and they're profitable. So
Get me started on that.
yeah. Oh, I'm telling you,
So
It's a whole nother
wrong.
episode.
it is almost. Yeah,
That's an ethical episode.
it
right there.
really is. It really is. Well, let's we can start this. We'll probably have to take a break and at the top of the hour and then come back to it. But I'm really curious as to what when you're dealing with like hauntings, or you're dealing with any kind of spiritual phenomenon, a paranormal phenomenon. How much of that can be attributed to truly external factors, and how much of that is really something that we're projecting out, like a egregore or a tulpa or some kind of thought form that feels external, and for all intents and purposes it behaves external, but really was something that we gave birth to through our trauma or through our fear. What would you say is the relationship between those two possibilities?
Well, one, the last one you talked about with trauma and fear and the things going on, you can create a PK manifestation around you because your energy is so chaotic. Therefore, the energy in your space is going to be chaotic. And that's okay if people are like, whatever, like, physics and all of the things. But energy is energy. And you can start have things being moved around your house, flying around your house, and it could calm down if that person calms down.
Yeah.
And you can have somebody like negatively clinging to you, kind of like the bad example to use. They're talking about my mother, but she's not like a negative spirit or something. But when she was alive, she lived in a 24-hour fear everything. Like I had to blindfold her to drive her to the doctor.
Oh my.
Because she would be reacting to everything that wasn't happening and also cause us to get in a wreck.
Yeah.
Just fear. And just get it. Like she was never going to let go of that. It was always going to be there. But that was her life circumstances too. And so, like, once again, like I wanted to do everything in my power to help her, and I tried. But in the end, I had to just be like, the damage is done. Like, she's very elderly now, very frail now. Like, I just have to let her be in peace.
Yeah.
So once again, you can't force people
No.
to let go of the fear, to let go of the anything.
You can make it worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. And that is a
and
big.
it's a part of them. So if you ripped it off and just took it away, like that's why I go very slow with people in sessions, because if you just rip open a wound and like somebody can have a mental collapse and they're definitely gonna have a
it's
panic
irresponsible.
attack. Yeah.
Very.
Well, I mean, I
Yeah.
find that a lot of the what we perceive to be that toxic sort of person is really a defense mechanism. It's a barrier to protect that inner self that has been wounded in some way, and they've made a resolve at some point, maybe even unconsciously, to never let that harm happen again. And if that means you have to put up this rough external barrier against everyone, including yourself, so that you never feel it again, then that's what some people decide to do.
And then they become a narcissist.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Those personality disorders are almost always iterations of what we're talking about, isn't it? I mean, Axis 2, April, is almost all this, right?
It is. A lot of the Axis 2 has to do with, trauma, especially what they used to call cluster C, I believe, or B. It has to do with like the narcissism, antisocial, all those things. It really is about trauma. It's like we were talking earlier, you start developing a pattern of beliefs about yourself or the world around you. And so you interact with the world based on those beliefs, whether they're based on fact or not.
That's the thing with Axis 2. For people that are not as familiar with psychology, Axis 2 is the part of the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders, that is sort of the psychological Bible for diagnosing problems. They're set up into different axes, and Axis 2 is all the personality disorders. And anybody that goes into therapy dreads Axis 2 because they're largely untreatable. You can't cure Axis 2. You can cure a depressive disorder. You can cure an anxiety disorder. You can't cure narcissism because it's part of the identity now. And it's so integrated that if it is at the point of integration where it's diagnosable, then they're already that. They have become the archetype. And now all you can do is help them with techniques to be more functional, but you can't get rid of it. You could never fix it. There's no medication you can take for it. And that leads to any number of long-term problems. So we're going to take our break here. When we come back, more on what we've been discussing with energy and, well, how that shapes reality. Don't go away.
Oh, Dolikaba, 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 Holy Papa, Dolikaba.
szom, körít most az a tojsz.
Welcome back, everyone, to the third and final hour of Vestiges After Dark. We have been having a fantastic conversation. We hope that you all have been enjoying the discussion. Thank you all for spending your evening with us. I know that there's a lot of choices out there, but the fact that you're here with us tonight is really something very special, so thank you for that. On this next hour, we'll be taking your questions if you have any. You can ask them in the chats around the various platforms, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. Just put them in there in the chat, and our moderators will get them over to us. Also want to, speaking of moderators, give a big happy birthday to Paula. She's one of our, happy birthday. And thank you for being here with us, Paula, on your birthday. I appreciate that. If you've got a question that you'd like to ask, and it's so important that you just got to talk to us, best kind of question, you can call the show at 207-544-1983. That's 207-544-1983. We'll take you on the air. Don't go away. Raven, what would you say is the biggest misconception people have about psychic ability, energy work, vibration, all of the things that you find yourself working within? What would you say is the biggest misconception that you see that people might have about it, where you can set the record straight tonight for them?
One, they treat it as if it's like a know all end all to everything, and really all we're doing is giving pieces to the puzzle. And especially if it's your puzzle, like, you have to get the rest of the pieces. It's like what everybody's always like, why can't psychics win the lottery? It's like, it's not what it's for.
Doesn't work that
it's
way.
It's not what it works that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I think they think it's like omniscience. That's a different thing, you know?
Yeah, Jesus could probably win the lottery.
Yeah, and he wouldn't. That's the funny thing about it, is that even though he's the only one that could, he wouldn't do it.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Which ought to tell something about that, you know, what the value of the lottery is. But Tiffany has a question. It's more of a psychological question, but it's a good one. She was wondering if empathy, empaths rather, are truly born that way, or is it a traumatic response to something?
I say born that way because I've been this way ever since I can remember.
And not based on any trauma. You just are naturally that way.
I've had trauma, but I've been like, I have early childhood, I mean, like toddler memories of things that I saw and had to deal with as a kid. So I've just still been the same me. I do think that because I'm so sensitive, it's a long story. You have to know what Akashic records are. We've talked about them before, but you make a soul contract when you come here, and things can happen to you, but you can make your futures. There we go. I wrote in there that I was born very small, lots of things going on, health problems. So I was taken and put in an incubator. And back in the 70s, like, parents didn't stay at the hospital and all that stuff.
Right.
So I was left alone. So as sensitive as I am, and then I had a lot of gastro problems as a baby, and my mom had to hold me like this all night long, every night. So if she didn't do that for me, I think I would have like flipped whatever empathic switch and just went like dark side, because I was left alone for that whole time.
Yeah.
So I think it can have an impact on, like, you can have a negative impact for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, because it's a good question, because I really have seen trauma unlock some of these abilities. It definitely seems to change the brain chemistry, which I guess makes one more receptive if they have the proclivity to become more receptive.
Yeah, I wouldn't call myself an empath, but I'm rather empathic. And I've always had like an ability to read the room and feel what people are kind of going through, but it wasn't until my NDE that it's really come out. And I mean, I can feel spirits now. I can feel energy changing in the environment. I've had flashes of almost like precognition.
Yeah.
A few times. So trauma can absolutely, if there's something already living in you, latent, any skill or talent or ability, I think that a trauma definitely will make it explode.
Or even doing the work that we do.
Or even the work, yeah. Doing the work definitely probably had something to do with it too.
Do you find, Raven, that you get more tuned in? The more that you have clients, the more you're working, the stronger it gets, and the more sensitive you become? Because I do.
The constant exposure to it.
Well, yeah. And I never stop learning new things.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, something new will come on my radar about something. It's like I've had a motion code done on me a couple times in the last month, and I didn't know about this. And it's like, that's another thing about psychics or healers or whatever. Everybody thinks you know everything about everything, and I'm like,
no.
All knowing,
right? Like,
all seeing.
Right? I wish.
It'd be nice, right? It'd be really nice.
Right? But yeah, so I just learned about emotion code. And so now it's like, all of a sudden, whatever I'm supposed to be doing and working on, it just kind of comes to me.
Yeah.
Like emotion code. And now I'm just like, okay, well, I can do emotion code now. It's just, I don't know. Very strange.
Well, I mean, I've noticed that the more that I get engaged with a particular area of the paranormal, the more that becomes visible, the more I have an occasion to experience something that's in that line. Let me give you an example. One of the things I've been studying a lot recently, and we've done some shows on it in the last season, and this season as well, I think, is simulation theory. It's kind of a fascinating part of new physics. And it's also got a lot of metaphysical components, and it sort of relates to like more ancient philosophies on Hinduism and the Maya, and that this is not the real world and all that. And it kind of links back to all of the craziness that's happening right now with extraterrestrials and UFOs and news, mainstream media, disclosure, mainstream media being more open about talking about these things. So it kind of all relates to this and certain things, and there's a lot of theories and conspiracy theories about it. And so it's fun to kind of read about that and explore that. And truth be known, I mean, the reason it fascinates me is because one of the things that I struggled with as a child, and one could even call it a trauma of sorts, is that I had a very hard time believing that anything other than me was real. I really didn't believe anything outside of myself was real for a while. And I had to kind of like learn how to ignore that, because it wasn't as if I wanted to believe that. It's just what I concluded about the strangeness of life because of certain key paranormal experiences that sort of led me in that direction. Now, that being said, it's been a fascination. Now, just the other month, about a month ago, I was at Costco with my wife and son, and we were walking into Costco, and as we were walking in, there was this man, and he was a very distinctive looking person. All right, wasn't like anybody. It was somebody that if you noticed him, you'd remember him. And he was trying to get this massive. He had two giant boxes, typical of a Costco purchase, and he was trying to stick this in the back seat of his little tiny car. And he had a small car. I don't remember what the car was, but it was small, too small for what he was trying to do. And he was trying to get it in there. And he had it up in a way, and his legs were positioned in a way that was kind of humorous. It was really kind of a funny visual, almost like what you'd see in like a SNL skit or something. It was just kind of almost ridiculous to watch. And you're kind of like, man, you're never going to get that in there like that. And so he was just trying to work it, and it looked funny. It looked almost like, this is entertainment, right? This is not real life.
I know you laughed at that man.
I did laugh at that, but I didn't do it out. Well, I didn't even acknowledge it to Tracy or Levi or anything. I just noticed it.
Poor man.
Yeah. So we walk in to Costco, okay, and when we go to Costco, and we're there for a while. All right. So we were there for at least a little over an hour. I like their wine list, so their wine collection. So I have a list of things I need to buy. Try to find wines that meet what I need, and spend some time doing that. And then of course looking at all the meats, and you know how Costco's like, right? So we spent about a little over an hour there, and checked out and walked back to the car. And I kid you not, this same guy was trying to get that thing in, and he was in the same exact position. And I looked at Tracy this time, and we both gave each other an eye like, this is like almost an hour and a half later, he's still in the same position. That doesn't make sense.
That's determination.
Determination. But then, we got in the car.
Was he called Sisyphus?
No, his wife told him it wouldn't fit, and he said, damn that, watch this. That's what happened.
Well, but the real thing is, I don't think I'm emphasizing enough is that it wasn't just him struggling. He was in the same crazy position and doing it the exact same way, and he still had the other box that he hadn't gotten in yet, and he was still trying to get this one in. And so we got inside the car, and I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. And as soon as and it doesn't take us long to load up, and maybe not even a couple minutes, and as soon as we got in the car and pulled out and drove by that parking spot, gone. He wasn't even there anymore.
Glitch in the Matrix.
I was thinking glitch in the Matrix. Yeah. It was like he was like an NPC that just got stuck, and he just kept in the same situation. So it was almost like the universe manufactured my interest in finding evidence for simulation theory, because that's what I was thinking about. That I was producing this effect, and who knows, right? I mean, I guess you could say it was coincidence, but. I mean, I'll tell you, that was a weird, awkward position to be in. That is a little weird. And the fact that he was in it for over an hour. Raven, have you ever had anything happen to you like that?
Well,
Yeah, of course. Anything you're thinking about, that's the thing I'm talking about too. You can manifest anything into being if you concentrate on it hard enough. But yeah, and I'm very rarely shocked by anything that I see in like the paranormal world anymore. But like, I have the good sense to know when I should be like, oh,
Yeah.
Stay away from
Step
that
back
one.
from that.
yeah. Yeah, right. Because I can still feel the energy from it, and it's like, yeah,
I mean, another thing that happens, it's been happened to me recently. My most recent paranormal experience that I've been having, it's happened a couple times now. I don't know if I've talked about it on the air before, but I told Tracy the first time it happened, where I go to bed late. April, you noticed that I go to bed late, right? Because she asked a question that like,
Or early, depending on.
well, I
2
guess it's
a.m.
early.
This morning
Yeah.
when he was talking to me.
Yeah, I was answering questions at that time because I don't usually go to bed till about 3:30 or 4 in the morning. I need the quiet of the early morning to reset my brain. I can feel the energy of the world. I really can. And I mean, I'm that sensitive to it so that when everyone else is sleeping, my brain is more at rest. So I like that time. I don't like sleeping through that time because I like that time and I want that time. So I go to bed late and I wake up really, really late as a result of it. And it works for me for the most part. Causes some problems when I have an appointment, but you know, so be it. But Raven, what this particular night, this was a few weeks ago, I was just sitting there and I was still awake and I decided, okay, it's time to start winding down. So what I'll sometimes do is I'll put on a show. Sometimes it's like something trivial like Star Trek or something just to get my mind, you know, nothing I have to pay too close attention to. I've seen every episode of Star Trek probably like 100 times, so it's like there's nothing new under the sun for me there.
Really not that many of them. I mean, from the original. Anyway.
Yeah, it's not many. But I was watching it, and so I'm just starting to drift. So when I get into that state where I'm not awake but not quite asleep yet, that's when weird things start to happen. And if there's anything around, I will tend to perceive it in that state where I'm still awake enough to know it happened, but I'm almost asleep so that my normal, ordinary consciousness is not interfering with it. And so I'm just sitting there in the dark watching Star Trek when I, you know, started to doze and I hear this voice call out from the darkness behind me, "Hey, asshole."
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so I turn on the lights because I'm awake enough to be like, what the hell was that? I turn on the lights and I'm looking around and I'm like, what was that? You know, because it's definitely not Star Trek. That does not happen on Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm looking around and there's nothing there. And so I went back to bed and, you know, and I fell asleep and nothing happened. And then, you know, quiet for several nights. And then this past week, almost the same situation. I don't think I had Star Trek. I think I just had an ambiance video on to kind of get my mind quiet enough to fall asleep. And I'm in that halfway state, and all of a sudden I hear, "Hey, asshole," again.
Same voice?
Same voice.
That's interesting.
And so at this point, I'm like, I'm too tired for your bullshit. And I yelled that out at it. And then it said back, it goes, "See? Told you you're an asshole."
You were talking to yourself.
I'm not kidding. I mean, it was weird, but this is what I
Your ego talking
I
to
know
you.
it was like talking to my ego,
Yeah.
right? But I mean, it was just like a weird experience, and you know, somebody that was more skeptical would say, "Well, that was just, you know, you're in that halfway dream state, so you kind of dreamed it." But I mean, I was very much awake. It was very much real. It felt very external. You know, do you think that that's just like a phantom of the psyche that I projected out there, you know, because I was tired? Or do you think I was really talking to something? What do you think about that one?
That's too specific.
It was very specific and very tangible. It was very tangible.
That's too specific to be like in your dream, or maybe somebody said it in a commercial or something. Like
Yeah, it's not random.
Twice.
Twice.
It's like,
Yeah, same voice. Same voice.
are you a dream walker? Where do you go walking in your dreams?
I mean, I do sometimes have very lucid dreams.
Oh, yeah, me too.
And
Good
I will
God.
sometimes have. There was one dream, to answer your question, perhaps the most profound experience of that dream walk that you talking about was, I remember, this was years ago. I was in college. So we're talking like more than 2-3 decades ago. I I was sleeping, and I found myself in a lucid state, kind of almost out of body kind of feeling, because there was that feeling like you were vibrating and then popping out. And so you kind of like drift at that point. And instead, usually when that happens, I would find myself above my body. I was very much an natural astral projector back in my college years. This is what kind of got me into really studying metaphysics, because this was happening so much. So I would look down at my body, or I'd see the room I was in, and then something would feel unsettled, and I'd like fall back in, and it would hurt. But sometimes I could actually go, and whatever I thought, I could find myself there. Whatever I thought, I would then be there, and it was fascinating. But this particular time, it didn't work. I popped out, but I couldn't direct my consciousness. I found myself in this place that I can't describe it as anything else than what would be the traditional view of the Catholic purgatory, and there were all these souls there, and there were children. And it existed on this plane because it almost looked like a desert, but in the sky was this like an aurora borealis. And then beneath there was nothing beneath the sand. It was almost like just abyss beneath it. And it was a very strange, I can't describe it other than that. And there was an individual there that sort of represented everyone and came over to me and said, "We need your help getting out of here." And I said, "Then let me help you." And I remember walking with them toward the horizon. And then the next thing I knew, I woke up.
Yeah, they brought you in.
So, I mean, that was
project.
that was perhaps the most profound lucid dream I ever had. And I had,
cool.
it was very tangible. It felt very real. So yeah, I guess the answer to that is yes. I mean, that's where I go. I go to purgatory in my dream to help. See, I'm doing pastoral work no matter where I go. Even when I'm sleeping, I'm doing pastoral work.
Then that means you're a medium too.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay.
I'll ignore the northern.
Yeah.
I'll ignore the northern hemisphere centric view there. It could have been the Aurora Australis.
It could have been. It could have been. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it felt like Earth, though, Father. It just felt like somewhere outside of Earth.
It's weird. I've had dreams, and it's been happening a lot lately, where you're asleep, you're in that time where, when you close your eyes, your mind's eye, everything's dark. But sometimes you, like, focus on a spot, like in your mind's eye.
Mm-hmm.
I've literally had like a flash, and then it opens up like a window, and you can see almost like a portal.
Mm-hmm.
You can see people moving around in another location, and it's just for a minute. And one time I had one of them notice me, and I could see them rushing towards me, and I was like, "Ugh!"
Yeah, it spoke to you. Yeah.
So strange, but it's been happening a lot, especially if I'm really tired.
I rarely remember my dreams, but the ones I do remember are really vivid, where I have conversations with grandparents who have died, and
Interesting,
and they feel really real. I mean, I actually think they are.
I describe it as being more real than real. It feels something about it that's more real, and you can't shake. Once you wake up from it, you can't shake the feeling. It stays with you for a few days.
Yep.
Well, and also,
go ahead.
No, please.
Spirits reach out in dreams, especially family members, people that know you, or are desperately trying to get you to listen to something, like if it's a messenger or something, angel or whatever, because it's easier in your dreams.
Yeah.
So anybody that has, like I have clients that have had somebody pass away, and they desperately want to communicate with them, but they're clogged up for the emotional things that they go through when you lose somebody.
Yeah.
So we have a session, and we ask them, like, come to their dreams, like go and talk to this person in their dreams, because you'll find them there. It's a lot easier. But bad spirits do that too.
That happens,
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They do. I mean, certainly I've experienced that too, where when I'm in, particularly that happens more so for me in that halfway state, less so for me when I'm in dream. I don't really have lucid nightmares. I do have nightmares, but they feel more so like actual normal dreams. They don't feel like anything significant is happening. It's like the usual stuff, like being in an elevator and it falling and being inside it. being chased by something in the woods, that
yeah.
kind of dream. And usually it's after a stressful day. But as far as like the lucid dreams, they always feel like I've gone somewhere. There are people there that I interact with. There's nothing really strange that happens. It's not like there's monsters or strange situations that don't happen in real life. It feels like these are real places with real people. And yeah, I think like Father Chris said, I think these are real events that happen. I think that's a state of awareness that we connect to in what we call the spiritual world, that we get a glimpse into. And Buddhism agrees, because they consider that to be a normal part. They cultivate this ability.
Well, is there a frequency or a vibration that we tend to all settle into when we go to sleep in between REM and wakefulness? Do we all kind of share that same frequency?
They're always broadcasting. Always broadcasting. So you can get in touch with your own frequency. It's kind of like listening for little musical tones. So when I teach people to do this, or even with trees or things, like nature makes frequencies too. They do it in meditation, but you're listening in on yourself. You're focusing in on yourself, and you'll start to hear tones. And it's just like a constant ringing, kind of like if your ears are ringing, you can go like really high pitched or low pitched. And then they get in touch with that frequency and they hone in on it. And then you start to feel your body vibrate with it, because now you're tuned into your frequency. So there you go.
That'd be a strange feeling.
Well, I mean,
it's a strange feeling.
Yeah, I bet.
It's not unlike an OBE. I mean, It really is, because I mean, any OBE that I've ever had, and I haven't had one like that in a very long time. It was happening all the time, like weekly when I was in college.
Like 2 times it happened to me 30 years ago. It hasn't happened since.
Tell me if it happened this way for you, because for me, every one of them was preceded by extreme vibration. You feel like you're literally being shaken out of your body. It feels like as if you're in an earthquake kind of a sensation, and then you just pop out.
Mine was more of a gradual raising, to the point where I thought I was going to end up in the upper atmosphere because I couldn't bring myself back down. I was floating. I could see the city around me. I could see my house. I could see me going past the telephone lines, the trees. And I would get to a certain point where I'm like, oh my God, am I going to stop? And then I'd scare myself and boom.
Fall back down.
I just slam into my body and wake up. What the hell? So.
Okay, we've got all of the neighborhood dogs are barking, and my dogs are like, what's going on?
What's going on? Oh, there he is.
No.
She's got a little co-host.
So are mine, sorry.
Oh, I see your cat back there too.
I've got 2 dogs and a bird.
Oh no. That is
No, let it go, baby.
Oh my goodness.
We got a whole conversation going on in the neighborhood right now.
Oh, that they can communicate. They certainly will.
What did you call me?
Yeah. Somebody's mad outside. Okay, let it go, dude. We're on camera, dude. We're gonna have to
Embarrass yourself. Settle in.
He sounds like a dirt bike, this little guy.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I like it.
No, you're not gonna go over there and start going crazy barking. You're gonna stay right here. Okay.
April's muted herself. April or Father Chris, have you had out-of-body experiences or anything that you think might be?
I don't know if it's an out-of-body experience or not, but I've had some strange dreams that feel very like, I don't know how to describe them, like it's real, I guess. I mean,
it is hard to describe.
It's, I remember once, I have a lot of dreams about being in different houses or buildings. And I've decided that that's my own mental state to an extent. And sometimes the houses are more dilapidated than others. But I do remember one particular dream where, you know how when you're walking through the woods and you have a spider web go across your face and you just kind of walk through it?
Sure.
It felt like that had happened, but then I pushed through it. So I'm assuming that I moved from one level of consciousness to another, is what I always thought. So I don't know what that would be, but that's kind of the experiences that I have had.
My model for that, and Raven, maybe you can shed some light on this, is that it seems to me is that that reality is really made up of layers of awareness. That's all it really is. It's vibration and geometry, but what is that all creating is basically awareness, and it's like layers of it, almost like an onion. So that as you penetrate one layer, you find another one, and as you keep penetrating through these layers, you arrive at different states. And yes, you can indeed interact with different levels of entities. And it seems that the higher that vibration goes, the more celestial, the more pleasant, the more peaceful the inhabitants of those particular vibratory realms seem to be. The lower or more dense they are, the more negative it seems to be. And that's kind of how I describe it. I mean, it's a weak model because it doesn't really paint the actual picture, because there's no words to describe what I've experienced in these states. But the closest thing that I can come to is literally like going through the layers of an onion. Raven, do you have any other better way to perhaps explain that? I don't know.
Well, yeah, and the more you get in touch with yourself and just be more and more in touch with the universe and everything in it, like you get more, and like I've gotten more and more contact with more powerful types of universal beings, for lack of a better word.
Mhm.
Like when they come, okay, Kinsey, really? I'm always talking. We don't care about the neighbor's dog.
They're saying speak for yourself.
Yeah. Now I forgot what I was saying. Turd. What's the question? Just go.
The layers.
Ignore him.
It's like going through the layers of an onion, and the layers of awareness. Yeah.
So, and just to be around them at first is like very hard to take. Like you're just like, whoa. And I've even had to say, can you like kind of tone it down? And then I'm like, because it's just very intense. It's not that they're negative, it's just very intense.
Yeah.
So, I mean, picture if Archangel Michael came down right now and started talking to you.
It'd be pretty intense.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So the more and more you get used to, and you just walk through the paces, it's kind of like your mind just starts, the onion is your mind starts opening more and more and more to the things, because you're not afraid of it anymore. Yeah. But you can also go down that, I took it too far path, kind of like Aleister Crowley. It's like, yeah, you were interested in everything. I'm interested in everything, but this doesn't mean I'm going to like acknowledge it and bring it into my life. Like he went a little too far, and then bad things happen.
Yeah, you went off the deep end a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is that it's almost like DMT, when you have these people that will go on these ayahuasca journeys, and you have to ask yourself, is this really, do you really want to unlock all that stuff? Do you really want to really open yourself up to all the things that are out there? Because if it's not done right, a lot of bad things can happen to you. Calling in from the 505 area code in, I believe, New Mexico. Hello, you're on the air with Vestiges After Dark and Raven Willow. Hello.
Hello, this is you-know-who, Val.
Oh, Val.
Hey, Val.
Hey.
Exactly.
Yeah, good to hear from you.
Oh. Yeah, I do have a question.
Okay.
I have an issue with if you, I don't even know how to word this. If you are dealing with a higher vibration and you're associating with people around you, and I avoid people that are negative, or I have trouble being around people that don't vibrate at that same level. And so in the community I'm in, I feel almost antisocial sometimes. and I don't even know how to overcome this because it just is what it is. I don't know if you can help me with that.
You're definitely an empath. You feel everybody's everything. That's why I can't work outside of my house, like going to like some job where you're stuck there all day, every day. That was so draining for me. I would just come home and be spent at 6, 7 o'clock at night and just want to go to bed. So you can't be around people all the time, all of the things. Like you need a break from all of that bombardment.
Well, exactly. But I mean, they feel I'm like antisocial because I'm not, when they say, oh, let's do dinner, I kind of just go, yeah, and then I just ignore it because I can't do it.
Yeah, but I'm the same way. I have to like mentally prepare myself to go be around people, even if they're people I'm very close to, because I'm that sensitive to things. So the people around me, they understand that, and they never take it as an insult. If I'm like, I just can't people right now. So you kind of have to surround yourself around people that understand that in you. And it's not you being rude or antisocial or saying, I don't like you. It's just your body saying, I need to just be by myself for a while and not be around you guys.
I mean, if it helps you feel any better, Val, I mean, I have to do the same thing that Raven described.
Me too. Like, I can't even, I haven't been into a Walmart in like 4 or 5 years.
It takes so much energy.
But
it sucks your soul.
But you know what? You guys are also cancers, and
True.
I am too.
Yeah.
And so it makes it, I think, just amplified.
It does.
Something to that.
That's an interesting angle.
Well, I'm a fairly extreme extrovert and a Leo. But I find supermarkets just unbearable now.
Oh man,
yeah.
I think it is also partly there's a cultural shift that's happened that people do not interact the way they used to, because they don't get the practice. Like they've been brought with this isolated experience. They don't watch adverts on telly. They've got their subscriptions and they watch what they want when they want, and they're having this individual experience, and they might live in Australia but their entire life is in California. And so that can't help but bleed out into when you actually are forced to interact with people physically, the people who live around you. It can't help but change the way that happens. So it's not just an introvert problem. This is a post-internet problem.
That's true too.
And a post-COVID.
COVID didn't help.
Culture.
That too, absolutely.
Isolating everybody by force, and then forget how to talk to each other.
Who was just fine during COVID is us empaths. We were like, I can ride
I was
this
good.
out
I mean,
all day.
I had to work anyway because I was still policing, but I was just like, I ain't got to go nowhere. That's fine with me.
I didn't
hated
go
it
much.
and ignored all of the rules and carried on celebrating mass and doing exactly what I wanted.
And that's what
and if I'd have got a fine, I'd have framed it and put it on the back of my wall and given it to my grandchildren.
Tracy was very kind to do all the dirty work for me. She didn't mind going out there with the mask and all that stuff, so she did. I didn't. I never put on a mask once throughout the entire COVID pandemic, not once. If I had a situation where somebody required it, I just simply wouldn't go to whatever that was. And that's how I handled it.
I used to arrest people for wearing masks at football matches, so I was not going to start wearing one.
Yeah. But I think that did, particularly for the young children that grew up during that time, I think it really damaged them. It's probably a trauma for them too, and I think we did lose.
Our teenagers too. Like people that came of age during that. I mean, one of our daughters turned 18 during COVID. It's awful, and the normal interactions that happen and dating and all that was just removed from them for like 2 years. Anyway, it was wicked.
Yeah. So, Val, you're in good company. I don't think you have to feel like there's something wrong with you if people are making you feel like there's something wrong with you or like you're antisocial because you don't want to deal with that energy.
You're just guarding your peace.
You know, I mean, look, that's what I do. I mean, I do the same thing. I really do. And I mean, if people call me antisocial, it's like, well, I mean, that's, I guess, your problem because it's not a problem for me. You know, I mean, don't worry about it. You know, I mean, it might damage friendships or whatever. But I mean, do you really want friendships with people that consider this to be a problem? Because it's not going to be energetically the right thing for you anyway. And
actually, Val, from a practical point of view, there's a really helpful thing to do, which, and this is true, again, this is not an introvert extrovert thing, but is to, like, keeping a diary. I don't mean a journal, I mean like a, you know, scheduled diary, is a good idea for everybody. I'm the worst at it, but I'm getting better. And to stick in the diary, alone time, like put it in the diary, because you know, you can figure out over time how much interaction is too much for you, and so stick in the diary or what gap you need between, but put it in your diary, make it a diary entry, so then you can say, oh, I'm not free then, you know, because then you'll feel less guilty about, you know, you've not really got anything else to do,
make
but
it a
you
task.
having that quiet time is a thing that you have to do, so it'll make you you know, remove the guilt of saying, actually, I'm doing something on that day, even though what you're doing is you're sitting at home and recharging.
If I can add something too, just so you know, Val, no is a complete sentence. You don't have to justify why you don't want to go hang out with people.
That's right.
Well, Father Chris, I mean, I've been this way since high school. I didn't even take lunch in the lunchroom. I went into the art room and painted. I have always been this way, and it's just annoying after a while because people notice it.
Sure, but you should. If you've always been that way, there's no point trying to fight it. I think you just got to, you know, rearrange things so that you release yourself, because you're making yourself feel guilty here. I can hear it, and you don't need to. And so you think, actually, I can hear it.
Don't worry about what other people think about you.
Let us release
you. You don't have to justify yourself to anybody.
Introverts are the observers. Like, you guys gain so much knowledge because you just sit there and watch and listen. Like, you're the masters of it. So, like, be proud of that. I'm an extrovert because I'm a Libra and different things, but I'm an introvert because I have to have so much time by myself. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember
just rock it.
When I was in high school, instead of hanging out with my peers in the cafeteria, which I did not do, also, Val, I had the benefit of the high school I went to was a private school that had grades kindergarten, actually preschool, all the way up to college level. We had every grade in that school, and so at cafeteria time, I would go and play with the kindergarten kids on the playground and just ditch all my peers because I enjoyed them more. They weren't giving me any emotional problems.
Bishop Brian went to a school that was so posh they called the Jim James.
Oh, yeah.
It was Tabernacle Baptist. You'd probably know them well, Father. You'd probably know them well. My first day in that school, they required us all to go to chapel, and I was coming from the New England, you know, where everything's just Catholic, where I grew up, and I had never stepped foot in any other church but a Catholic church. So I was like, chapel? Okay, yeah, it must be like mass. So I go in there, and you know, it's in a gymnasium for one thing. We're sitting on bleachers. I'm like, what the hell is this? This is chapel? And I thought I was in the wrong spot, but everyone was there, so it's like, I guess this is right. And then the preacher comes in with his Bible and he just, you know, quietly walks in. I'm like, okay, what's going to happen here? There's no altar, there's no crucifix, there's no stained glass. What the hell? And so he goes up to the little podium there, And he takes his Bible and he slams it down on the ground. Pages go flying everywhere. And he points out to everybody in the student body, goes, "You're all going to hell." That was my first experience with Protestantism. I'm like, wow, this is nothing like I've never known a priest that did that.
Emotional damage.
Yeah.
Way to have a positive outlook.
I mean, right? Yeah, it definitely didn't do much for me.
Now then.
Welcome, new students.
That's a true story. Story. And I thought, my God, what have I gotten myself into? Because it was the only private school that was near our home. The Catholic school's on the other side of town, and just we couldn't figure out a way to conceivably make that work. So they sent me there. The public school they didn't want, because there was a shooting that week, and they were like, "There's no way you're going there." And this was back in the 80s.
Well,
this was back in the 80s.
Val, when I was at school, again, even though I'm an extrovert, most lunchtimes I spent in the music room. And you know what? I can still play piano and guitar, but I'm not in touch with the people I was at high school with. So I reckon long term, it was pretty good for my personal development.
Yeah, I think you're probably, look, you got to follow your own inner wisdom. And if that's what your inner wisdom is telling you to do, then that's what you do. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't put a moral judgment on that. That's your nature. Honor your nature. That's what I would say about that. Raven, I want to give you an opportunity to just, I guess, tell the audience whatever you want to tell them about how they can reach you, what services you might have available. You've been really wonderful to be here with your having to deal with the hives. You must be very uncomfortable, sitting here for 3 hours.
The whole time.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
You are a champ.
Yeah, but my God, I mean, it's been such a great time. So, anything that you want to share with the audience, the floor is yours.
Anybody can contact me, Instagram, TikTok, the Reels thing, Facebook, YouTube. It's all under Psychic Empath Raven Willow. It's all the same name.
Good.
So my YouTube has my podcasts that I make individually, or just longer videos because they're informational, kind of like mini documentaries, I guess. Those ones don't get as many views because people want their 15 minutes and that's all they can
that's
handle.
all they want. Yeah.
But yeah, you can find me there, and Yelp and Google have contact information under the same name. And I'm just always working on anything and everything. I want to learn about everything. So, like right now, I learned emotion code, like I told you. I do the Akashic records, and I'm a Reiki master. I do quantum meditation sessions. I see everybody's everything. So I see your past lives, your present life, what can happen in your future lives, past lives that you've had. If your house is haunted, I can hold somebody's object and tell you all about that too. And
you might need to put her on retainer.
I'm in everything.
Yes, you need to put her on retainer.
What are we going to deal with here? Yeah.
So that's Psychic Empath Raven.com.
Yeah.
So Psychic Empath Ravenwillow.com. And that's the same.
The website's not active.
Oh, it isn't. Okay.
It didn't really get any traffic.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So it's basically social media.
It's all social media. And yeah. But the only thing I don't really deal with is infestations of just negative entities. Because one, I'm too sensitive for that, and I just end up going in there and vomiting all over the place because that's literally my body's response to that crazy crap.
Yeah,
that's our job.
Call
just send them to us. We can handle that. Yeah.
I'm as soon as I walk up on one of those, I'm or if there's dolls involved, I'm no. Call somebody else.
I'm not a fan of the dolls either.
No.
That's where my pragmatic stoicism comes in. I'm we're getting this crap out of here.
Yeah. If they don't end up in the fire, they go to Zach's museum. That's what happens.
Right.
But Raven, I want to thank you so much for being with us here tonight. It's been fantastic.
Great
thank you.
Okay, thank you guys.
Yeah, we'll definitely get you back on the schedule
you feel
again.
Much better.
Feel better, yes.
My goodness.
My gosh, take care of yourself there.
Okay.
And for all of you, thank you all for joining us tonight. Thanks to our audience, our moderators, Father Chris, April, Jamie.
Hello.
Thank you all for being here tonight. It's been a fantastic evening, and I hope you all agree. I enjoyed this one. Next week, we have a brand new guest to talk about how to listen to God. Kind of an inversion of the normal expectation of prayer. What I would argue is true prayer. Prayer's about listening, not so much about, uttering out nonsense, because that's what most people do in prayer. Listen to God. So we're going to find out how to do that better next week. That's Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. But until then, I will see you all out there in the ether. God bless everyone.
Thanks, everybody.